Good evening and welcome to tonight's Monday, August 4th, 2025 City Council meeting. I will first await a motion to leave the non-public session and to seal the minutes of that session.
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Kelly, will you please now take the roll?
Yes. Mayor McCachran,
Here.
Assistant Mayor Kelly is absent this evening. Councilor Tabor.
Here.
Councilor Cook.
Here.
Councilor Denton
He's on his way.
is on his way. Councilor Blaylock.
Present.
Councilor Bagley.
Here.
Councilor Moreau.
Here.
Councilor Lombardi.
Here.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, before I get too far here, I just want to read you guys into a change we're going to make in terms of the agenda. We're going to have public comment so people can share before we vote on the resolution from Councilor Bagley and Councilor Cook. We're then going to await a motion to bring that up to immediately follow public comment. I know that there are many things in the council, all but I'm guessing based on the signups that there are a lot of people here listening for that. So we'll get to that as soon as we get after public comment. So first up, acceptance of minutes for May 19th, 2025, June 9th, 2025, and June 23rd, 2025.
Your Honor, I move to approve and accept the minutes of May 19th, 2025, June 9th, 2025, and June 23rd, 2025 City Council meetings.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And with that, we find ourselves at public comment. So, we have Ellen Quadgrass from you're a resident of Kittery, but you're also you lead the South Church, so we'll allow you to speak before typically at the end as you represent members of the community. That's it. Oh, and sorry, because there are so many people signed up this evening, we're limiting it to 2 minutes of public comment. Typically we have 3 minutes, but we try to have it to be 60 or less than, we try to have it at 45. So hopefully we can work within those bounds. And always, if you're speaking and you simply want to say, I am here to firmly support what the speakers before have said to me, and you want to get up and you want to say that, that is certainly appreciated, and brevity is also a very compelling form of argument. So Ellen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm the Reverend Ellen Quadgrass, and as you noted, I serve as one of the spiritual leaders at South Church here in Portsmouth, although I will be speaking for myself and not on behalf of the congregation today. I am here tonight to speak in strong support of the resolution brought forward by Councilors Cook and Bagley. Members of my congregation regularly ask, what are we doing to live our values as a community? A question which extends, in my mind, to how we live them as a city. Portsmouth has long called itself the city of the open door, and that is part of what drew me here 3 years ago. It's a phrase that implies welcome, dignity, and courage, and the resolution is about living those values. We may not, as a city, have the formal power to control the actions of a federal agency, but we do have the power to ask questions, seek transparency, and stand for due process for everyone. I recently spoke with someone who was apprehended by ICE here on the seacoast and sent to a facility thousands of miles away. She's back home now, and she did not share the details of what that was like, but what stayed with me was the fear that arises when people don't know their rights, when families can't find out where their loved ones have been taken, and when accountability is absent. And we're not talking here about halting appropriate enforcement. What we're talking about is ensuring that enforcement is transparent, lawful, and respectful of human dignity. And here's what I know. When one person or one city chooses to live its values, others follow. That's how change begins. That's where real power lives, not just in the authority of an agency or a government, but in the decision to do what's right, even when we're told it won't make a difference. Please support this resolution for the sake of those most impacted and for the sake of who we are.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
Next up is Rich DiPentima on due process resolution.
Rich DiPentima, 16 Dunlin Way, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Dear council members, I urge you to support the resolution proposed by Councilors Bagley and Cook regarding constitutional rights to due process. The Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution states that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. There are no exceptions stated regarding no person. As elected officials, you took an oath that includes a pledge to uphold the constitutions of the United States and New Hampshire and to faithfully perform the duties of office. As such, it is your constitutional duty to honor that oath and to ensure that all residents of Portsmouth are assured their constitutional rights to due process of law. As Governor Pritzker of Illinois said yesterday in response to the undemocratic events taking place in Texas and which are applicable to Portsmouth's elected officials today, to be in public office right now is to constantly ask yourself, how do I make sure that we're standing on the right side of history? The answer is simple. The wrong side of history will always tell you to be afraid. The right side of history will always expect you to be courageous. Expect courage from people around you, and it will show up. Expect fear, and fear will rule the day. Let the courage of the brave leaders be an example to the rest of the country. I am proud to stand by side with our friends from Texas today. I hope we can be as proud of you tonight. After all, we pledged earlier, we are a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Not some, but all. Let's honor that pledge tonight. Thank you.
Next up is Roy Helsel on city budget and projects.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Roy Helsel, Middle Road. The city budget and projects. When the city plans projects, I feel the city should and the council should consider if they are projects that will benefit the majority of citizens of the town. Landowners, not just a few citizens or the developers. These are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Next up is Beth LaMontagne on after-school programs.
Hello, Beth LaMontagne, Bartlett Street, and I'm here to talk about after-school programs. It is 3 weeks until school starts, and my family still lacks after-school care for my family. And it's not for lack of trying. We needed to fill a space that was left at New Franklin School when MC3, their after-school program, changed, and so my family is no longer eligible for this program. I have applied to every program available in Portsmouth. There's a waiting list, a long waiting list for all of these. I logged on to the new community campus program, which I really appreciate that this is there. However, at exactly 9 o'clock, every single space was full, leaving many parents feeling very frustrated. YMCA is also not an option for New Franklin families because it is the only school that doesn't have busing from the school to the after-school program. I really appreciate that you've been thinking about this and there is some room through the rec department for after-school programming, but I'd really love for the city to and the school department to take a more holistic look. I'm feeling like New Franklin doesn't have the same opportunities as parents and families at the other elementary schools in town. And I'd love for us, as we look in the years ahead, to kind of come up with a solution that meets the needs of all families in Portsmouth. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Sue Potadora on Portsmouth.
Sue Polidora, Middle Street. And I just wanted to say regarding the resolution, we're living under the repercussions of having had a 4-year open border situation where anybody and everybody that wanted to come was allowed in unvetted, unannounced, and left into the interior of the country. This is what is happening now. This has been placed on us. And this administration wants to be able to do something about it as part of their promise before they get elected. It is well known that the federal government is the only one that have the responsibility for immigration issues. On the 8 U.S.C. Code, Section 1227, 19 titled 8 U.S.C. 1324, and 8 U.S.C. Code 1325, improper entry aliens. All right, people that come here and they're improperly, i.e. illegal, they can be removed by an action of the Attorney General through the DHS office. I believe it is wrong for the City Council to try to insert themselves into this issue, which is really none of our concern and none of our responsibilities. If you didn't take any type of decision on the Gaza issue that I remember, then you shouldn't do anything about this either. Is none of our concern. And regarding,
Hey, guys, we're going to let
see, these
everybody
people have been going from town to town. Many of them wrote down that they live in Portsmouth.
Sue-
They don't.
speak your mind on your topic.
Well, right here, I want to say that if you object that the ICE agents are wearing masks, there had been an increase of 850% increase of violence against them, doxing them and their families. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Sue,
That's why they wear them.
We are at time. Thank you for your comments.
Please
Next
be
up-
aware that many people that are put their name on the list are not residents of Portsmouth.
Next up is Irish Mike on ICE.
Hi, good evening, Mayor.
Evening, Mike.
Michael Harn, Orchard Street. I came here a lot of years ago, a legal immigrant, and I'm against Councillor Bagley's and Councillor Cook's resolution. It's not really a resolution. It's you can't have a resolution or pass a law out of hate. If you go back, I don't know, I can't remember who was president when I came here, but if you go back to Bill Clinton's State of the Union address, it says, America is a land of opportunity. Everybody has a right to freedom, but it's also a land of laws and barriers, and anybody that's here illegally will be deported and will have mass deportations. By the end of Bill Clinton's term, he had over 12 million deportations. It dropped under President Bush. There was, I think, around 10 million. And then it came to Barack Obama. He said, the immigration system is broken. We're going to have mass deportations. He said, if there's families here and if they're here illegally, they will be separated. And that's where the cages can. That's where kids are separated from their parents are put in cages. And Bill Clinton, Bush, and Obama, there was 30 million deportations. There wasn't one injunction. President Trump so far has about 300,000 deportations, and there's already 30 injunctions. If it goes at this pace, President Trump would have to have 8 million deportations to be on the same pace as Obama or Clinton, and I don't see that. Everybody has a right to be here, but come here legally. This assault on police officers are getting beat up by illegal immigrants.
Thank you, Mike. We're at time here on the red light. Thank you, Mike. Next up is Judith Castle on due process resolution.
Good evening. My name is Judith Castle, and I live on Pleasant Street in Portsmouth. So I am not here this evening to call us to fight on the beaches as Churchill did in 1940 when he called on the British people to defend the nation. The threat in 1940 came from the fascist government in Germany. The threat now derives from the fascistic actions, I practice that a lot at home, we see taken by our government on a daily basis. It is plainly a threat to the legacy of democracy and the rule of law that we have inherited and are rightly proud of. And we are called on now to defend this legacy. It goes back to the Magna Carta in 1215. Let's not toss it aside now. I think it is important that we do what we can locally and that we not remain silent. I'm grateful to the City Council for listening to our concerns about ICE in Portsmouth, and I am particularly grateful to Councillors Kate Cook and Andrew Bagley for introducing their resolution, which I hope the Council will support and act on. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Next up is Anna Howard on due process.
Hi, I'm Anna Howard. I live on Maplewood Ave in Portsmouth. I've lived in the United States for 30 years now. I have the honor of volunteering with some of you, serving the community. And I'm an immigrant who went through all the stages of immigration, and I know firsthand that the difference between being a legal immigrant and an illegal immigrant can be just a piece of paper, just a signature, just a timing of the stamp. Those are arbitrary technicalities that should never outweigh our shared humanity. These distinctions, though bureaucratic in nature, right now can determine persons' freedom, livelihood, and dignity. I urge you to support the resolution to protect citizens' due process rights, because no one's life should be upended without fair treatment. Thank you.
Next up is Diane Stradling on due process.
Thank you. I'm Diane Stradling. I live on Union Street in Portsmouth. I will be very brief. I'm here to strongly urge the council to support Councilors Cook's and Bagley's resolution. Thank you.
Next up is Janet Grote on due process.
Hi, and I'm Janet Grote. I live on Wybird Street in Portsmouth. We moved here about 20 years ago. I'm sorry I haven't been to that many of these meetings, but I am compelled to be here tonight and grateful for Council Members Bagley and Cook for introducing this resolution. I'm going to speak in support of it for a moment. I did have some minor changes that I wanted to recommend, so bear with me to get to that. I think it would be great if we could reduce some of the polarization around the immigration issue. Many people have different points of view about the right amount of immigration in our country. But I think we all, or most, agree that people should be treated humanely and in accordance with the law. And that's what this is about, and that's why I'm so grateful that you've introduced it, that what we're asking here is for our federal government to be accountable, to be transparent, and to tell us what's happening to fellow members of our community and fellow coworkers. So thank you. And for people that don't know, many of the abductions of people in this country that have happened, that family members did not know how to find the missing people. They were like disappearances. And in many cases, they turned out later to be legally present immigrants who got caught up in the madness of what's happening, sometimes for weeks at a time. So while I agree with the former speaker that the distinction can sometimes be hard to understand, that's no excuse for ICE to continue their tactics. On the changes that I wanted to propose, if you wouldn't mind, the title of the resolution talks about citizens, yet the body and the language of the resolution talks about all people. So I was hoping that you might be able to address that with a change in title. And then secondarily, there is, I love the Freedom of Information Act requests intent and language. I would hope that you would add to that information about where the individuals are being detained, because I didn't see it specifically. So I was hoping that could be addressed. Lastly, in an earlier life of mine, I was a newspaper reporter, and I did some Freedom of Information Act requests, and I know there may be some concern about the time that it takes for city staff, legal staff to do this. If you ever wanted any help, I can volunteer. So thank you so much.
Having a hard time this name, but that's just me. Luca Lassi. Is this
Definitely.
Lara
Last name is Lassie.
Lassie? If you have signed up to speak and I didn't get to you, and you're on this list, and this is the name that I can't read, we'll get you at the end, so sorry about that. Francis Cormier on ICE.
Francis Cormier, Melbourne Street. You know, I used to see signs up on people's lawn, no one's above the law. But they only put up those signs when Trump is coming under investigation. Now the signs are gone. If no one's above the law, why do they have sanctuary cities to protect people that are above the law? You can't have it both ways. You can't say no one's above the law and then have a sanctuary city to protect illegal aliens. Here's another thing. We're all immigrants. Your ancestors came over here. It was called Ellis Island, the Statue of Liberty. What's going on the southern border under Biden? What was going on there is not Ellis Island. They were funneled in without any checking. Some of them were murderers. One of them killed a woman out jogging. There's no investigation or a background check. That is not Ellis Island down on the Mexican border. They're two different entities, but the liberal mind can't wrap themselves around this. And here's another thing. Yeah, go ahead and laugh. Go ahead and laugh. It's not Ellis Island. Now, why did they give these illegal aliens free everything? They get free food. The first ones came over, were put in a hotel, and they get free health care. I don't get free health care. I don't get food stamps. They get $64 a day. I thought it was a week, but it isn't. It's $64 a day per person. I don't get that. What do they eat besides caviar? That's what I'd like to know. That's $248 a week for one person, and it's free. And what is this all about? It's bribery. They're trying to bribe these illegal aliens with free benefits for life. Just vote the way the liberals want them to vote. And you get free everything, free health care. I don't get free health care. The Portsmouth Hospital is bugging me for a bill because I got hit by a car on Beverly Hill Road. And I told them, send the bill to the guy who hit me. Send the bill to the guy who hit me.
Next up is Janet Pulaski on ICE.
Hi, Janet Pulaski, Mendham Avenue, Portsmouth. And I'm a longtime proud resident of the City of the Open Door. I'm speaking tonight in favor of Councilors Kate Cook and Andrew Bagley's resolution. Critics of the resolution have argued that ICE and immigration in general are federal concerns and should be left to authorities in Washington. Full disclosure, I'm a historian. So looking back, when nations built walls to exclude, it was cities that opened their doors. For as long as nation states have fortified their borders, cities have quietly, without fanfare, extended housing, employment, and connections to new arrivals within their community. Those cities that opened their doors, and I should point out that most of them were port cities, usually flourished. The global parliament of mayors recently drew the historical contrast in appropriately stark terms. Where nation states create problems, cities solve them. Generations of refugees have secured their due rights not on a national stage, but locally, in neighborhoods, as Eleanor Roosevelt acknowledged when she was drafting the International Declaration of Human Rights. Refugees, she wrote, secure their rights to housing, education, and work in small places close to home. Kate Cook and Andrew Bagley's resolution calls on Portsmouth, the City of the Open Door, to assure that all residents feel safe in our city. We are fortunate to have a police chief, a city manager, a mayor, and council who believe deeply in these principles. We all hope that you will commit to them formally by passing this resolution. Immigrants have traveled long and different routes from many different places to get to Portsmouth. Once here, they literally keep the doors open in our restaurants, hotels, grocery stores, and so many establishments. In Eleanor Roosevelt's words, unless rights have meaning here in our neighborhoods, they have little meaning anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Next up, Hannah Sauro on ICE.
Good evening, Hannah Sauro. I'm on Oak Street. I'm here tonight to support Councillor Cook and Bagley's resolution to protect citizens' due process rights. I'm a proud resident of Portsmouth, and I love this city, and I'm very grateful to call it home. Portsmouth is the city of the open door, right? So we celebrate our diversity here. So look no further than our local businesses. Without embracing our diversity, downtown Portsmouth would not have the same vibrancy. Diversity makes every facet of life better for everyone, no matter your race or identity. If we do not cherish and defend what we have, it will disappear. Just like our friends and our neighbors who are being kidnapped off the street by cowards who conceal their identity because they know what they're doing is wrong. Portsmouth will be forever scarred if we simply sit on our hands and watch this unfold. And I understand that the city of Portsmouth's reach does not extend to Pease, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing we can do as a community. The resolution Councillor Cook and Bagley are putting forward tonight is a step in the right direction, and I thank them for taking that step, but it is also the least that we can do. We owe our immigrant community far more than this. So to the councillors, I implore you to support this resolution, and I also ask that everyone practice empathy And especially if you don't see a problem with what's going on, I challenge you to ask yourself a very simple question. What if it were me? And what if it were someone that I loved? Thank you.
Thank you, Haley. Next up is Brandon Sorrow, also on ice.
Hello, Brandon Sorrow, also Oak Street. There is a relation. Good evening, counselors. My name is Brandon Sorrow, and I'm at Oak Street. Oh, well, there goes my speech. Okay. I'm here tonight to voice my support for Counselors Cook and Bagley's resolution to protect citizens' due process rights. I believe that it's the least we can do for our neighbors. The city of Portsmouth is a welcoming place with a vibrant and diverse community, and I want my neighbors to feel safe. And I can tell you that nothing makes me feel less safe than masked men running around kidnapping people based on the color of their skin or the sound of their name. ICE is not welcome here. I don't want them intimidating. I don't want them intimidating my neighbors. I don't want them harassing our businesses. And I don't want them deporting people from our airport. City councilors, I urge you to vote for Councilors Bagley and Cook's resolution. Again, I think it's the least we can do. And fellow residents of Portsmouth, we must do what we can to protect our friends and neighbors. And don't let these ICE thugs abuse our city for their meaningless quotas. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Laura Emmer?
Close.
What's that?
Sounds good. Yes,
Wait, what was that?
you were.
Oh, Ewer. Oh, definitely a Ewer. Yep. It's my biggest fear is Dagmar McCachran to mispronounce people's names, so I'm sorry.
No worries. Hi, my name is Laura Ewer. I was born and raised in Dover and returned to Portsmouth, specifically White Cedar Boulevard, during the pandemic. What I remembered about Portsmouth as a youth is still true. This place is a safe haven for the hopeful, the resilient, the courageous, and the free. This town remembers shipbuilders and strikers, safe houses, and sanctuaries. We don't forget what it means to stand between power and the people who try to crush. And I don't want ICE here. I don't want agents of fear creeping through the quiet edges of our city. I don't want kids looking over their shoulders. I don't want families torn apart in parking lots or in back kitchens. I don't want unmarked SUVs stalking the streets like predators. But if ICE forces its way into our neighborhoods, if this machine of pure cruelty takes root here, it doesn't get to do it in secret. They don't get to hide. They don't get to come masked. They don't get to slip through like ghosts, unnamed and unaccountable. If they're here, they should show themselves. Badges out, paperwork in hand, faces uncovered. No masks, no lies, no hiding behind just doing my job. If they've got the power to take someone's freedom, they'd ought to be ready to look us in the eye while they do it. We won't be policed by phantoms. You don't get to terrorize and vanish. You don't get to demand papers if you won't show yours. If ICE is in Portsmouth, they should walk visibly, known, exposed. They don't get to dress like civilians and act like soldiers. Because this isn't a battlefield. It's a city. It's a home. It's my home. It's our home. And it's sacred ground. So no, I don't want ICE here, but if they're going to crawl into our streets, they don't get to come cloaked. They come into the light. Come numbered, come named, or don't come at all, which I think we would really prefer that. People deserve to feel safe in the place they call home. This place is still a safe haven, and we have a duty to keep it that way. Now I ask you to do yours. Thank you.
Next up is Kendra Ford on ice.
Good evening. I still really appreciate that public comment is part of our process, that having this kind of conversation is part of how we put our society together. I really appreciate this resolution because it's clear that the council listened to the people of Portsmouth and said, what can we do? And I appreciate that it was probably a stretch from certainly what was done before. And as the person before me just said, I still think we as a city need to ask ICE to show warrants, to show badge numbers, to show their faces, to be ready to explain how they are connected to the whole institution that they say they're part of. And I think it is absolutely within our rights to ask for that. And I think that maybe that's our next stretch as a city, is to say we ask that ICE operate completely legally in this town. And if they're going to be working at Pease, I think we have to take that on. And I ask you to work with us and be creative about how we can stretch there and make a difference. I'm asking you as our elected leaders to figure out some ways to make some changes. And if you and the police department don't, the people probably will. And we would love for you to be leading that change.
Next up is John Benford on ICE.
Hi, I'm John Benford of Pine Street in Portsmouth, and I'm here to urge the council to pass the resolution to protect due process rights. Our country is experiencing an administrative coup, an attempt by democratically elected leaders to claim and retain authoritarian power. There's a well-known playbook for doing this, which has played out in many countries and times, and is playing out rapidly in our country at present over months rather than years. The current ICE raids nationwide, including in Portsmouth, are not about enforcing immigration laws. Rather, they are part of the coup. They are creating an environment of terror and suspicion and setting the precedent for suppressing constitutional rights like due process. As noted in the resolution, due process rights are for everyone, not just citizens. Suppressing those rights is a key goal of the coup. They are starting with the most marginal groups and trying to convince us that they do not matter and that they do not have rights. But if we do not stand up for the due process rights of everyone, citizens will soon lose our own due process rights. Protecting those rights is the job of every citizen and every elected official, because none of us is safe until all of us are safe. In order to defeat this coup, we will need to actively resist. We cannot expect that it will go away on its own or that others will stop it. This resolution is a small but important step because all acts of resistance matter, and I urge you to pass it. And we will need more acts of resistance, bigger acts of resistance, riskier acts of resistance if we are going to succeed in stopping the coup. Thank you.
Since I invited Ellen to speak at first, assuming that it was speaking on behalf of South Church, spoke as a resident of Kittery, I'm going to continue to go down the list as it is. And we have a member from Northampton where typically they would speak last, but because I want to make sure everybody is equally represented here, we have Klein Dickens of Northampton on topic of ICE.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Klein Dickens. I live in Northampton. I was born and raised in Portsmouth, graduated from Portsmouth High, but now can't afford to live here and live in Northampton. I come to you all today to strongly support the resolution. And I thank Councilors Cook and Bagley for drafting the resolution. I hope it gets passed. But scratch that. Quoting David Graeber, the late anthropologist, he said, what was the quote? "The ultimate hidden truth of the world is that we made it and we could make it differently." And so tonight, I'm asking you guys to make it differently. So I'm just going to hand this out and then I'll keep talking.
I can take them all.
You can hand it and pass.
My methods are unorthodox, but I hope they're fun. So I guess I left all the copies, so I can't see what I wrote. But basically, no, thank you. So y'all have until January 1st, 2026 to pass a sanctuary policy. It's something you can do right now. The draft is in front of you. If you accept that, you'll have a sanctuary policy ready to go. It will materially protect my neighbors and friends. And it'll be legal until January 1st, 2026. On that date, you may face a court battle, but potentially hundreds of people in Portsmouth will be safe. As opposed to right now, and under the proposed ordinance, they would still be in danger. They would know their rights, which is great. But they would be in danger. We're seeing people, all right, 5 seconds. Can everyone just yell, "Fuck ICE"? No.
Next up, Marie Collins on the topic of ICE.
Hi, this is my first time doing this, and I'm very nervous. I'm Marie. I don't live in Portsmouth. I live in Elliott, Maine, but I'm one of the core organizers of the New England BIPOC Fest, which is in 2 weeks at Strawberry Bank on Sunday the 17th. I hope everyone comes. There's going to be a ton of good food. So I'm just here. I did a little research on Portsmouth and the Portsmouth City Council. This is a community I've been a part of in some capacity since I was born. I was born in Dover, grew up in Lee. And I was looking at your goals. You guys have 4 kind of core goals, right, that are leading you. And the one that really stood out to me was number 3, which said to invite and engage the entire community, especially those traditionally unreached, to increase participation and transparency in government. And I was just thinking, wow, what a great opportunity for all of you to take a step towards that goal by approving this resolution, which focuses on transparency in how our law enforcement agents behave in this city, federal or local. So I really hope you will pass it, and thank you so much for your time.
Eric Anderson on bonding. Is Eric here? Oh, yeah.
Good evening. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Eric Anderson, 38 Georges Terrace, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I know the dominance of your public comments tonight is, within the subject that's been discussed, but still on your agenda is the authorization of bonding for 2026 for a total of about $39 million. I just want to note, I would appreciate I'm going to be listening closely to any comments that the City Council has on this particular issue, although I think it's going to, I think you probably approve it. But since 2022 to date with this, you will have bonded about $154 million for authorized the spending of $154 million for bonding. That's a pretty big number since 2022, on top of what our annual budgets are. So I think it's not a It's not a light subject because it's a fiscal subject. And I know I've commented on the fiscal compass of this council with some responsibility to the taxpayers. And I hope you take light of that in your discussions this evening about where you're going to be going with these bonding issues. All they are is it's another burden on a taxpayer for projects that are probably, you know, that have warrant, but still you've authorized a tremendous amount of money. It's like putting a bag of money on the table for staff to pick, because that's it. Once you authorize it, the bag is open. And there's probably little to stop it after that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Next up is Mary Reel on ICE.
Good evening. I'm Mary Reel. I live on Lincoln Avenue in Portsmouth. I could be very long, but I'm going to be very short. It's all been said. I will make one remark, and that is that in an interview with Bob Woodward, Donald Trump is quoted as saying that the way to power is fear. And that's why we're here. And while I'm here, I'm also so impressed with our counselors' attention to that issue in their resolution. And I urge you to pass it. Thank you.
Next up is Tyler Carzo on Bike Ped Master Plan and Market Square.
Sorry, it's not on ice. Tyler Garza, 62 McKinley. I wanted to speak in early support of the Bike Ped Plan and the Market Square plans that the city manager will present later tonight. Just highlighting two things. First, that the top inexpensive community priority on the Bike Ped Plan is finishing the Middle Street bike lane. It's $100,000. It's a drop in the bucket. Second, the Market Square plan genuinely deprioritizes single-passenger automobiles and favors pedestrianization by taking away permanent lanes and changing them to sidewalks. It's a wonderful thing. A car never bought anything. We need more of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Next is Susan Denenberg, Finances and ICE.
Good evening. Thanks for being here. We all know we are a nation of immigrants. My father was the firstborn in his family. My grandparents came from Latvia and Ukraine. We all have, and I look around the room and I know people have immigrants in their family. We support your resolution. I think it's very important that we support people who've come here to get a better life. These are people who are working, who are trying to make a better life for themselves, their families back home, and so forth. So I would urge you to do that. But we also, as citizens, have more power than the city council does, and we can take action that you can't or might not want to do. We can go to Pease and we can protest and we can speak up. And so you may feel limited to doing some things that seem civil and good and right, but there is more we can do. So I just want to mention that as well. And most of the topics today we haven't gotten to is about finances, and I would urge some frugality here. I know we think we live in this bubble of Portsmouth and that things will never get bad, but I think there's a good possibility that the economy will turn around and not be in a good place with tariffs and everything else that's going on with the chaos. And so I would urge you, when you look at what you want to finance, that you be very careful and look carefully at what are wants versus needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. We have Elaine Beauchesne. Thanks, Elaine.
Hi, Elaine Beauchesne. I live on South Street, and I'll keep it brief.
Due process means fairness. That's all it means. And if you're not in favor of fairness, what are you in favor of? So it's a fancy term for fairness, and I think we want to be fair ourselves. We want fairness for others, and it doesn't matter where you come from. You still are entitled to fairness, and that's what the Constitution says. And the city would be supporting that concept by passing the resolution proposed by the two councilors who are proposing Cook and Bagley. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Next is Sophia Shaw, ICE Resolution 13.
Hi, my name's Sophia Shea, and I'm here to represent the restaurant industry in Portsmouth. I just wanted to take a moment to, I just got live updates about our friends from La Coretta who have been in a detention center for 1 month. They've had their hearings already, and the judge passed that they were welcome to come back home, and I was just informed that it's been appealed. No, it's been appealed. It's been appealed, so they still have them in the detention center because it's been appealed, and they keep setting them at a higher bond every time the judge passes them. So now they've been there for a month, even though they were already supposed to be here. So I just want to say that I just got those updates, and Sophie wanted to share, so I just wanted to say that before my speech. I would like to reiterate how scary it is for the friends that I work with in the industry that are at risk because of the color of their skin, their native language, and their occupation. This being a walkable city is even scarier because our friends have been followed off the street into their jobs and detained in our restaurants in our community, including business owners, not just workers. This is making this our business and our responsibility. Restaurant owners have been at the forefront of advocacy, protection, legal help, which has depleted many resources and their ability to run their small businesses. It is completely our duty to protect our workforce and the restaurants that are the backbone of Portsmouth. It's the backbone of our lifestyle, community, our tourism, and our economy. But these people don't just work here, they're the backbone of the culture of Portsmouth in every single way. This is about us. We need to protect us and our people and make sure that every single person is accounted for, has right to due process, and that our leaders are being held accountable for their actions. Maybe we can't do all we want to do, but we can do something. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. Kristen Hunter on the ICE resolution.
Hi all, thank you very much, and deep thanks to Councillor Bagley and Cook for this resolution. I am speaking in support of it, and so many good things have been said already, so rather than repeating them, I'm just going to share 3 things. One that I just read, which I find interesting. So there have been protests at Hanscom Airport for the last several months because they were flying detainees out of Hanscom, and there's an article that just came out that another member in the room shared with me that they moved them up here. They're now flying them out of Portsmouth because of that protesting. And I think what's been named about there's more we can do as citizens in this city is true, and I have confidence that we'll be doing that. I also just want to say that Mike was not incorrect around the Democratic the reality of deportations, whether a Democrat or a Republican president has been in office over the last 10 years, has been egregious. It's been horrible on both sides. We've been deporting people, and it's been terrible. So if you actually know much about immigration, you don't have great feelings about whether Biden was in office or Trump in terms of how we have been treating migrants in our country. However, this fear that's happening now it's a new thing. I have never witnessed an unmarked van pull up in a community anywhere, certainly not in Portsmouth, and men get out of that van with masks on, no identification, show no paperwork, and take people away from their families, away from their jobs, outside of hotel rooms. They're stalking construction sites. They're stalking restaurants. They're stalking motels and anywhere where there's cheap rates for people to stay. And they are grabbing people with no due process. It is terrifying. It's absolutely right that it's intentional. The fear is intentional. The effects of degrading our due process laws is intentional. And you do have the ability to say something about it, whether or not it's legally binding, and you should. It's terrifying and it's wrong.
Next up is Caitlin Windus of, on library funding from Rochester.
Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Caitlin, and I am a resident of Rochester, but I was born and raised in the Seacoast. I'm the daughter of a public school teacher who has taught in Dover for over 30 years, and also the daughter of a male person, as well as the brother of a national, the sister of a National Guardsman. I am here not to speak about ICE, although I am in support of passing the resolution. I am here more to share some sadness and some disappointment around the news that has come out from the library that they're reducing their hours and that they are also cutting a position. Anyone who lives in the Seacoast area knows what an important role the Portsmouth Library plays in the community. They offer incredible services at a time when everything seems extremely expensive. Those services are free for not only Portsmouth residents, but residents of the surrounding communities. It has proven to be a great place for folks who work remotely to do their work. It serves as a cooling center and a place of refuge for unhoused members of our community. And it was deeply disappointing when I heard that news in the library newsletter, that a position was being cut and that hours were being reduced. I think at a time when funding across the board is being cut. I'm a public health consultant, so I understand what it's like to have tight budgets. I think what we need to do is pour into our community institutions that produce great things for the residents and for our community. And cutting library hours and cutting positions at the library feels like it runs counter to Portsmouth's values and to the Seacoast values.
Thank you, Caitlin. Next is Monica Greenleaf on ICE.
Hi, my name is Monica Greenleaf, and I'm a long-term resident of Portsmouth, and grateful to be so. And I appreciate this resolution and support it 100%, and hope that the council does as well. The speakers up until now have in favor of the resolution have said so many points so well that I'm not going to take the time to repeat them. I just want to say two things. We've heard a lot about the fear of ICE, and I just want to also mention the fear of immigrants, which is based on lies. 71% of current detainees, these are people who've already been picked up by ICE and are in detention, 71% of current detainees have no criminal convictions. So I'm thinking, as I know we all are, about the 4 people who were captured by ICE in our town, and they've been in detention a month and found to have no criminal convictions, surprise, surprise, and they're being let free. That's great. Only 1 month of their life and lifetime trauma was affected by this. But I do want to say, and I think you'll agree, these people are not murderers or rapists. They're not cat eaters or criminals. And
Monica,
who is feeding that fear?
Can we just into the microphone, because there's
All right.
people and nobody, it's going to be
Okay.
YouTube, and then
All right.
nobody's going to know what you're saying.
Okay, well, I would hate that. So basically, I'm just saying, let the police do their job, which is to arrest criminals. Portsmouth Police can do that very well. And then ICE can dress nicely and go around checking immigration status politely and humanely and legally. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. All right. We have Nancy Brown. Nancy left?
She
Oh, bummer, my neighbor. Always love Nancy. We have, so if you signed up and I couldn't pronounce your name. That was you. What's your name? All right. The floor is yours.
My name is Peter First.
That is not
Not
what
even
it says.
close.
Not
was
even
it? I don't know what happened. So I live on Marcy Street. My family includes naturalized citizens. We've tried to protect ourselves quietly, but the toll has been excruciating to our mental health, our safety, and our peace of mind. Every week we debate whether it's safe to go to work or which grocery stores, state parks, or beaches are least likely to be targeted. We schedule errands with caution. We plan who will be ready to respond if one of us is detained. Due to limited parking in the South End, we have people lingering in our driveway. What once seemed like a harmless curiosity, it now feels like a potential threat. My children, they used to walk to the market or to the playground on their own, but now they don't. Our front door is lined with immigration rights flyers, emergency contacts, and scripts on what we have to say if strangers come knocking to our door. So what does it do to a child to suddenly live in a world where their parents are no longer treated as being equal to their neighbors, debatably worthy of police protection, where doctors and teachers become dismissive, where people pretend not to understand their accents due to passive prejudice? Portsmouth's international community remains under quiet but persistent threat, and their advocates' efforts increasingly marginalized. I've personally witnessed language used by our public officials that casts suspicion on Indians and Eastern European residents under the banner of scam prevention in our community very recently. Maybe that is legal, but I don't believe it's right. We're slowly watching the slow ghettoization of our international neighbors right here in Portsmouth. That word may sound harsh, but the signs are clear. Policies that create fear, systems that isolate, outcomes that punish people simply for existing. This all can feel routine or unremarkable, but that's how injustice hides behind its best cover under policy, procedure, and polite indifference. I support the resolution by Cook and Bagley, and I don't believe what we're doing right now is who we are. I believe Portsmouth still cares. It's really not the final word. It's a meaningful first step. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. We have one member on Zoom, Kate Haddam.
Hi, Kate Haddam.
Haddam.
Hey. Ash Street. Well, I'm not here to speak about Councillor Cook and Bagley's resolution. I do just want to say that I think it's important and we do need to come together as a city to support and protect each other and all of our rights to due process. So I really am looking forward to hearing how you as a council plan to do that. The reason that I came to speak is once again about the elementary school playgrounds. We've been talking about these playgrounds for many years now, and I simply wanted to say tonight that I fully support the resolution authorizing a bond for these critical spaces for the youngest school children in our city that are grossly out of date and not up to current safety standards. So I hope this gets unanimous support tonight and that we can finally bring this project to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Next, any other speakers? Great. Well, not great, but thank you all for, did go over an hour. We were 10 minutes late getting in there, but I await a motion to suspend the rules and to bring up item
15A.
15A under Counselor Cook and Counselor Bagley's name.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Counselor Cook and Counselor Bagley, will you please introduce your motion? Counselor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tonight I ask the council to pass this resolution to protect due process rights. I think there was a wonderful suggestion from a member of the public to strike the word citizens because due process applies to everyone in the title. So I would be happy to entertain a slight revision to the title. But the reason we're bringing this forward is for all the things that have been said here tonight. Everything that's been said here is critical, and it is absolutely the least we can do. And that's what Hannah reminded us of. And it is absolutely just a first step. So I think it's important for us as a community to sit down and say, what can we do in the immediate term to start the process of taking action to protect our community members? We can reaffirm our due process rights, that everyone has due process rights. But we can also take some actions to reassert that in Portsmouth, we are the city of the open door. We believe that everyone has those rights. We welcome individuals into our community. And we can say, as a city, we don't approve of any action that denies a resident due process rights. But then we can also say, hey, we want to know what happens to people who live in our community if somebody else is denying them those rights. And so then we go a little bit further to ask to submit FOIA requests to find out who's being detained. Why are they being detained? What happened on our streets? Because that isn't transparent to us. And as our police chief had said, they don't even have that information because the federal government doesn't necessarily share it all with our police department. And so we can submit those requests so that we know what's happening on our streets. And that's really critical, I think, to our residents, especially to family members who don't know what happened to their loved ones. I was really happy to hear from our police chief when he came and spoke to the council and answered our questions. I think that our police department is doing everything they can to support residents, and they are working very, very hard to make sure that we guarantee due process rights in Portsmouth, that they follow the law. And our police department does a fantastic job doing that. But that doesn't mean that the federal government does a fantastic job when they're operating in our community. And we all have to remember, despite the fact that, I would personally want to call on federal officers to show their badge, show a warrant, not wear a mask. Because I think that those things are critical to building trust in our community and having people trust law enforcement. And I would tell you that I think our police department probably agrees on that, because the last thing they want is people operating in the community that makes it more difficult for them to do their jobs. So even though I want that, I know that the federal government doesn't have to listen to me. But they do have to respond when it comes to federal law. And that's why we can submit FOIA requests and ask them what they're doing. Let us know what you're doing. But this is just something that the government can do. The greatest power that was emphasized by one of the speakers tonight is the power of the citizen to protest, to take those actions. I will be right there with you in protesting because it's really going to take a critical force to get change.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor Bagley, and then Councillor Denton.
Thank you, Your Honor, and I want to thank Councillor Cook and the legal department for putting together this resolution, which I think is perhaps with the one change of citizens to people's due process right. I would be happy to support that. I originally ran for council because I'm interested in things like the Market Square plan and our school systems. And, we do have cuts at the library, but we're also introducing a bookmobile. the boring everyday stuff of municipal government, looking at the bond issues. Those are where my interests lie and where my duty as a counselor lies. But starting with the abduction of the Harvard student that I think a lot of us saw online, who was surrounded by masked individuals that came out of seemingly nowhere and took her off the safe streets of some town just outside of Boston. This has been gravely bothering me. And when it came to people of Portsmouth being abducted by our government, our federal government, I didn't think it was right for us to be silent any longer. I was very appreciative that we have a police chief and a police force that spoke so strongly to everybody being treated with dignity and respect, and their focus on crimes that need to be solved, not fear and paranoia that we're seeing. So why it's true that this may be a little bit outside of the lane of what the city council traditionally does, I think it's important for us as leaders of a community that is built of immigrants and the descendants of immigrants to take a stand. And finally, something that I've always felt very strongly about, I was lucky enough to travel worldwide for most of my career, is none of us pick where we're born, who our parents are, who our grandparents are. None of us. There's not a person on earth who got to decide that. So I believe that you take people for who they are, not where they come from, and not who their parents or grandparents are. The value of people is in the person themselves.
Thank you, Councilor Bagley. Councilor Lombardi, then Councilor Moreau, and then Councilor Lombardi. That's what I said before. All right.
You had said Denton.
Oh,
but-
Councilor Denton. That's what I meant. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Councilor Denton.
I applaud everyone for coming and speaking at public comment in favor of this resolution. As you know, it's just one way to voice your worst fears, and I argue that actively attending protests is even more important to voice those fears.
Councilor Denton. Councilor Moreau.
I thank everyone for coming out this evening. As an attorney, I've actually not only taken an oath as a city councilor, but as an attorney to the state of New Hampshire, as an attorney to the state of Maine, and on the federal district court level. And a really big part of becoming an attorney is learning about due process. And, you're supposed to protect everyone under the law. So as I read through this resolution, all as I read is exactly what we're supposed to do in our jobs. It's not out of our lane. It's not out of our lane to protect people's due process rights. And I truly believe in everything my fellow city councilors have had, but as an attorney, I believe it's our legal obligation to at least protect due process rights. And what I've read, that's all we're doing. So I will be supporting it.
And Councilor Moreau. Councilor Lombardi.
Thank you, Mayor. In 1965, it was the first time I took the oath to uphold the Constitution when I was inducted into the Air Force. I took that very seriously. And the second time I took that oath was that when I became a member of this council, and I swore to uphold the Constitution then, too. I've lived by that all my life, and I think this is just what I have to do.
Thank you, Councilor Lombardi.
Councilor Blaylock. Thank you, Your Honor. Everything included in this resolution, I always have assumed Portsmouth has done this since day one. It's been a pleasure to be born here and grow up here. These things I've always believed in Portsmouth, and I believe that our Portsmouth Police Department does keep us safe. It's disturbing that we have federal agencies, coming in and they're not under our jurisdiction, but they're coming into our town. I want to protect all the citizens of Portsmouth, and I want to protect all the visitors. I want to protect all the workers. I want to protect everyone that comes to Portsmouth. I do worry. I know some residents are concerned that we should be focusing more on city government. They worry, what does this resolution accomplish? What does it change? But I think tonight, all of you showing up has shown that this has started something. It started to change. You guys are all uniting. I know this is a first step. I am curious what the next steps would be. I want to make sure we're checking every T and dotting every I and not, doing our oath of office. I reached out to the deputy chief today. The chief of police is out of town. But he assured me that the PD doesn't work with ICE. And the PD will not work with ICE. And they will continue to protect all the citizens of Portsmouth. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bagley. Councilor Tabor.
Thanks, Mayor. I want to vote for this, and I hope we all vote for it to make our voice heard. I think it's wise that it's drafted as a resolution, so we're not trying to assume powers that we as a city government don't have. And why are we doing this on a national issue? Well, it became local because ICE made it local. And our community's angry about that, about how it was done, and the lack of transparency about how it was done. And I think that's a reason I want to vote for it. But I also want us to be careful about how we engage on national events. Like Councilor Bagley, I think our real job is the things we do for this city. And tonight we have a huge turnout because the threats to our democracy and the national issues are so compelling. But we have to be careful as a council about how we chase that energy. We should venture into national affairs very, very carefully. I recently was on vacation, spoke to a woman who's on a city council in Cambridge. Some nights they spend 4 hours debating resolutions on international and national affairs. This is different. This is local. But we have important work to do that we were elected to do. We're trying to create affordable housing, keeping the infrastructure sound, best services we can get for our taxpayers. And we have limited time to deliberate. So I just add a note of caution that we want to keep those things as our first job. And when events compel us to do something, but we can act, but we should be very careful about entering into national and international events.
Thank you, Councilor Tabor. Everybody spoken? All right. Well, I have a few words as well, and first it's thanks. I'm truly never surprised and always encouraged that we work for you, and the top job in the city of Portsmouth in the United States is that of citizen. You guys have a responsibility and you use it well, and so I want to thank you for coming out. Whether or not you ultimately agree with our vote tonight, I still thank you for coming out. It's important that we continue to have dialogue and continue to show up. I thought a lot about immigration, and I know this is a due process. I'm going to get to that in just a second, but I thought a lot about immigration as we went through this. And now, I'm old Portsmouth. I've been here now. I guess my great-grandfather came from Nova Scotia. They were two boaters in from Ireland. That's because they didn't have enough money to get to Boston right away, so they had to pit stop in Canada. It's a great place, beautiful beaches. But he came down with pennies in his pocket to come work at the Morley Button Factory. That's before he was an artist, commune. It was a place that made mattress buttons, and they called him the lawyer because he could read. No formal education, but he could read. And I was thinking that as Sophie Shea was here talking about the restaurants. Yeah, it used to be more of a working port. We still have fishermen, we still work in port, but if you look at Portsmouth now, you're not looking at shoe manufacturers, you're not looking at giant brewers, although we have a lot of great microbrewers. You're looking at a lot of folks in the service industry. And so when I think of in 4 generations, who's going to be looking back at Portsmouth? I hope we can figure out housing so that, some of those workers that have come here with, just pennies in their pockets and a dream of a better life can make an impact and will be part of Old Portsmouth by then. I also think of the city of the open door, and there's always a portion of that statement that I love that Stephanie Secord pointed out to us, and that's when it actually occurred. And the city of the open door was a marketing campaign, and it was 100 years ago, and it was the chamber. But in that pamphlet, it was also around the rise of the Klan in the Seacoast region. And there was a lot of people, and the Klan, was against a lot of people, more than just black people. They were against Irish. They hated everybody. That wasn't who they were at the time. And we made a specific point in that pamphlet to talk about how our police were not going to hassle you, that they were going to show you the courtesy that you deserved, and they were trying to counter a narrative that the Klan was rising, and there was still an opportunity to come to Portsmouth regardless of your station and your background. And I say that because we have an opportunity to say something similar tonight. And I agree with the concerns that we should not be focused on issues that at the end of the day, we don't have as much authority on as budgets, and it's important to be able to continue to deliver. But we live in a republic, and this is no different. You trust us with a lot of issues, and so when there's issues that draw this many people out, we have to be able to speak up on them, so you know that you can trust us on the other issues, the issues when it comes to how we spend your money, what we're focused on, what are our priorities. So it's important to be able to stand up at times like this, and it's tough to think about this without thinking of the Nazis that showed up in Concord on Wednesday, or sorry, Saturday. And the last time we had Nazis, in New Hampshire was likely when they were surrendering in 1944 in U-boats at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. And we didn't just beat them because we're better morally. We are better morally than Nazis. That's not saying something crazy. We are better morally than Nazis. But we have an entire better system than the Nazi regime. The Nazi regime was based on bloodlines. We are based on opportunity. We are based on words. We're based on a country that's founded on documents that we are always trying to live up to. Yes, we are not perfect in that, but we are continuing to try to live up to those words. And in order to be a country that's based on words, the government has the final say. You will see me up here as much as I can trying to give everybody an equal opportunity to speak at public comment, because it is important fundamentally in our country that our government fears us and we do not fear the government. When the government has the final say and we are powerless to stand up against that, and we don't seek to correct that authority, our democracy breaks. It is incredibly important that we focus on the due process, and I thank Councillor Cook and I thank Councillor Bagley for working to make this a document that speaks to not just our higher angels, but the foundation of what makes us the greatest country in the world, a country that is not perfect but always strives to be better, and that is words. And if you are against this, I understand that there are many things with immigration that we got to fix. There was there's a saying, the way to stop, illegal immigration is to make immigration legal again. And so there is countless efforts that I hope that our national government, our federal delegation can take on. But here we have a responsibility to the Constitution, as Councillor Lombardi said, to each other, and to support this means supporting fairness. It means supporting the idea that we are all subject to the Constitution if we're here and we have the ability to question our government, something that is foundational to people in New Hampshire. We believe that. We do not trust, you guys don't trust us to put in sidewalks. You don't trust us to talk about storm drains. You're here, you're involved. And so why would we trust any government with the ability to rip somebody off the street without due process? This underscores that, and I want to make sure that this passes unanimously, which I believe that it will, and that Portsmouth knows that there is work to be done. And as Councillor Denton said, that citizens, you still have the last say. You are the most powerful in this country, and I expect you to continue to do what Portsmouth does. So with that, we will have a roll call vote.
We need
Your
a
Honor,
motion.
could I make a motion?
Oh, not have a motion?
Yeah.
We did have a motion.
I move that we pass resolution number 13-2025, a resolution to protect citizens' due process rights with the amendment that citizens be changed to residents.
Second.
So it is amended from citizens to residents. Yes.
Okay.
Kelly, we take a roll call vote?
Yes, Mayor. Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCaffrey?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute recess. Back now. We are moving on with the public hearing portion of the evening. First reading of ordinances. First reading of Chapter 1, Administrative Code, Article 1, Administrative Code Ordinance Amendments, Section 1.102, Administrative Organization, Section 1.103, Organizational Chart, Section 1.105, General Powers and Duties of the Department Administrators, Section 1.106, Specific Duties, Functions, and Responsibilities of Departments, Section 1.107, Authority of City Manager.
Your Honor, I move to pass first reading of the proposed changes to Chapter 1 and schedule a public hearing and second reading at the August 18th, 2025 City Council meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Cook. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next is first reading of Chapter 2, Sealed Deeds and Elections. Article 2, Deeds, Section 2.201, Execution to be amended by deleting the section in its entirety.
Your Honor, I would move to pass first reading of the proposed changes to Chapter 2 and schedule a public hearing and second reading at the August 18th, 2025 City Council meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next up, first reading of Omnibus Vehicles, Traffic, and Parking Ordinance Amendments, Chapter 7, Article 3, Section 7.326, Limited Parking, 15 minutes, Hanover Street and State Street. Section 7, Article 3, Section 7.330, No Parking, State Street and Sagamore Ave. Chapter 10, Article 4A, Section 7A.
Chapter 7. Chapter 7.
Did I say, what did I say? Chapter 7? Chapter 10. Chapter 7, Article 4A. I'm glad you guys are paying attention. Sometimes I feel like I'm just reading this stuff off into the ether and it doesn't even matter. Okay, so Chapter 7, Article 4A, Section 7A.408, Taxi Stands Designated Pleasant Street. Chapter 7, Article 6, Limited Hours Loading Zones, Penn Hollow Street.
Your Honor, I move to pass first reading and hold a public hearing and the second reading at the August 18th, 2025 City Council meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next to the public hearing and second reading of ordinance. We have a public hearing and second reading of ordinance amending Chapter 7, Vehicles, Traffic, and Parking, Article 3, Traffic Ordinance, Section 7.324, Time Limited, Free 3-hour Parking for Specialty Military License Plates. We've had the presentation. We can have continued. Councilor Denton.
I'll make 3 quick points. First, this codifies what Portsmouth already does when it comes to any vehicle with veteran plates, which is 3 hours of free parking in metered spaces. Second, that will not increase it shouldn't have any impact on the parking revenue whatsoever. And third, it expands this beyond just veteran license plates to other military license plates such as National Guard, reserves, active duty, and anyone with a Gold Star decal on the plate.
Thank you, Councilor Denton. Any other questions before we reopen it again to public hearing speakers?
Does it need a second?
He hasn't made
I didn't make a motion.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, we'll have the public comment, we'll have public hearing speakers, if any. Right now, we'll open the public hearing. Seeing none rise and none on Zoom, we will close the public hearing. I await a motion and further council questions and deliberations.
Second.
Yeah.
I'm
we
sorry.
first need to have
I'm sorry. Yeah. I move to pass the second reading and schedule a third and final reading of amendments to Chapter 7, Article 3, Section 7.324 at August 18th, 2025 City Council meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Blaylock.
I think this is a great idea. And my understanding is we've always kind of given veterans a break on parking. But I think this codifies it and includes the other groups that Councilor Denton mentioned. So thank you both for bringing this forward.
Certainly. Thank you, Councilor Denton, for bringing this forward. And it does codify and creates an opportunity to reduce confusion because while veterans plates were recognize active military on many occasions, was not, especially as we invited military into our city as part of the 400th or any number of events where members from Pease or the Navy Yard are here. So reduces the amount of conversations parking staff and the administrative office will have when we're trying to adjudicate those active duty as well as Gold Star families. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Your Honor, I motion to suspend the rules to pass third and final reading.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Your Honor, I motion to pass third and final reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Denton. Next up is public hearing and adoption of resolutions. These are going to require a 2/3 roll call vote. Public hearing and adoption of resolution authorizing a bond issue and/or notes of the city under the Municipal Finance Act up to $4,150,000 for costs related to school facility capital improvements, elementary schools upgrade, and elementary school playgrounds upgrade.
Your Honor, if I may, I'd like to set the stage for items E, F, G, and H. And all presentation material can be found in the agenda packet by way of the element sheets that were provided in the adopted capital improvement plan that was part of our budget. And all the projects listed here have the appropriate staff members here tonight to answer any questions. E speaks to school commitments, F speaks to sewer fund, G is water fund, and H is miscellaneous projects within the general fund. I think we need questions on the school first.
So who's speaking on behalf of the schools? Any questions?
We just,
Okay.
we're here for questions rather than.
Okay, so just on the elementary school, this is again reusing some of the costs of the, some of the savings as well as bond authorizations of what has already made it through the capital improvement plan. We are now at the point where we need the authority. So this is sort of like started as a question, is ending as a comment. But it's sort of like the debt limit when we've already voted to move something forward, i.e. the capital improvement plan, where we've decided to do something with regard to the school playgrounds. We've already put that in the capital improvement. We've already passed the budget, which is inclusive of the capital improvement plan, and now we are bonding authorizations. So if there are no council questions, we can hold those to the end and open up public hearing to hear of any speakers on that. Councilor Bagley, how's it going?
Just a quick question that I got from a resident. When the school department and some residents toured the 3 elementary schools, there were some unexpected deficiencies, I think particularly at New Franklin, that nobody had really been aware of relative to the other 2 schools. This bonding isn't really to address that. This is stuff that was previously.
That is my understanding, but I'd ask for Ken Lynchy or Brian Cisneros to speak to that from the school department. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you. Yes, part of this bonding is to start addressing the deficiencies in New Franklin. This is part of the $3 million that we're requesting to move forward, that we're working with the architects now in surveying the school and creating a task list to move forward.
Oh, that's great news. Thank you.
Any other questions? We'll open it up to public comment to speak to for or against these, the bonding on behalf of the school department. Seeing no one rise and no one on Zoom, closing the public comment on that. Any additional council questions or deliberations? Seeing none, we will need, Councilor Cook, there we go.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to reiterate support for the parents who came forward last year during the capital improvement plan process to highlight to us the deficiencies in the school playgrounds. And I really hope this funding and this bonding tonight allows the schools to move forward as quickly as possible in starting to improve those playgrounds.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. I've shared, this is part of the capital improvement plan, which I was told earlier tonight that we're starting again in August, to my dismay. But we will look to have this time around more conversations earlier with the school department, specifically around some of the capital improvements, so that we can have a full further discussion, but also work to find priorities among the school department and the city of Portsmouth more broadly. So looking forward to starting that process again. But this is money that has already been voted on, and we're allocating the bond authorization as such. We will have, do we need a roll call vote? Yes, we need a roll call vote. Roll call vote, Kel.
Your Honor, we need a motion.
first.
Do we not have a motion?
No.
All right, I wait a motion.
Your Honor, I'll move to adopt the resolution as presented.
Second.
Okay, and now Kelly, when she is ready, after taking down that Councillor Blaylock made the motion and Councillor Morrow seconded, roll call vote.
Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCackron?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Next up, public hearing and adoption of resolution authorizing a bond issue and/or of notes of the city under the Municipal Finance Act and/or participation in the State Revolving Fund SRF loan program of up to $8,915,000 for costs related to annual sewer line replacement, sewer service funding for Sagamore Avenue area sewer extension, Pierce Island wastewater treatment facility, the Fleet Street utilities upgrade and streetscape, citywide storm drainage improvements, Chapel Street, Lafayette Park, and Monroe Street drainage improvements, and the sewer system modeling. Are there questions that the council has before we open it up to the public hearing? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing for any questions related to the adoption of resolution in the amount of $8.915,000. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any additional council questions?
Your Honor, I move to adopt the resolution as presented.
Second?
Councilor Moreau.
I just had a question that they're putting money towards Lafayette Park and Monroe Street drainage improvements. I was wondering, because I believe we had a resident who spoke to us a while back about the need for sidewalks, more sidewalks in that area as well. So I was wondering if there was any crossover in this. I can't remember, so that's why I'm asking. Because I know a lot of times we have these on multiple sides, and I can't remember if this would be part of that.
Welcome, Eric.
Hi. So the sidewalk is funded in this upcoming capital one under sidewalks money, but we use prior fiscal year monies for the survey, which is currently ongoing.
Okay.
Just to identify the property lines and know.
So it is the project that's all happening together.
Right. Well, we don't want to link them too much. Like, we could do the sidewalk separately from the park work and all that, but that, the park in Monroe Street, there's combined sewer there and some degraded sewer stuff. So we're working on kind of like three different things. You got to do the sewer before the park, and the sidewalk can be done independently, but they're funded separately.
Okay, thank you.
Peter got down, but he got back up. All right, Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Eric.
When do we anticipate Chapel Street improvements to begin? I ask this because, this is one of those small streets that goes through town, so it'll have a heavy impact.
We were talking about that actually. So we're thinking the spring time frame. I know that's been kind of deferred for quite a while, and this recent capital request was really just to deal with the escalating costs, because it's been kind of on the shelf and ready to go. So the thought is we can advertise in kind of the fall winter time for spring construction. But again, there's rerouting and there's considerations with impacts to the community as well. So I think we were thinking that it may be a good time just to get it done, because it's pretty degraded, but it's a complete street and it needs to be done. So
thank you.
And just while I have you, Eric, can you speak at all to the Pierce Island wastewater facility updates that will be enabled through this bonding?
Right. So this is a component of value engineering during the design phase. So we're doing The third press, that's currently getting piloted. This is for clarifier repairs. So they did some minimal improvements to upgrade it, but this is for a comprehensive rebuild for some of the rake mechanisms and some of the other rotating equipment and the clarifiers. That was sort of what it was earmarked for. And these were, these three, this one, and then there'll be a next fiscal year, there'll be another request for the chemical building. So we're kind of doing a few of the things that were deferred during the original construction activities.
And what kind of benefit can the residents in the immediate vicinity expect from these type of repairs? Are they more?
Similar to when we drain tanks and we pump things down, sometimes you get turbulence on those, the larger exposed tanks, so sometimes there can be odors. The thought is we try to do these off hours or try to keep those nuisance odors down, and we do have odor control that captures a lot of that. And I think we did some improvements with swapping out our odor absorbing materials. But there potentially could be some nuisance odors, but I think what we do is we try to make sure the community is aware when things are happening so they understand that it's a programmed activity, not just something is going wrong at the site. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. And all of these projects, just I guess, will there be pages for each one of these when it comes to, or maybe not on the sewer system modeling or the annual sewer line replacement, but for the major projects, can residents expect to see project updates on the city webpage?
Well, that's the plan, yeah. We'd like to make sure everyone's notified of the status of things or if there's any impacts to them. I think even the modeling, ultimately this filters into our long-term control plan updates. So this is a comprehensive model, and we had some existing monies already allocated, so this allows us to kind of front run some of those requirements that we will have to pay for, but this will start with some of the initial stuff, and I think as part of that, we'd probably have its own web page as well, just because this is consent decree and this is part of those updates. So
there's a lot of people that are always super interested about the bugs, so the more information we get on there, the better. So thank you, Eric.
It never really ends with these big sophisticated plants, so we constantly program in upgrades and repairs.
All right, appreciate it. Any other questions? We will have a roll call vote. We have a motion this time?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCackron?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Next up, public hearing and adoption of resolution authorizing a bond issue and/or notes of the city under the Municipal Finance Act and/or participation in the State Revolving Fund (SRF) loan program up to $11,450,000 related to annual water line replacement, well station improvements, water storage tanks, Greenland well treatment, Fleet Street utilities upgrade and streetscape, and Chapel Street. And with that, are there any questions before we have a motion and before we hear from public hearing or public comment? Public hearing. All right, we will open the public hearing. Any questions on this? All right, Petra.
Petra Huda, 280 South Street. So I've been kind of holding off because I want to do this all at once. So, councilors, before you vote on this $39.1 million in bonding, the public deserves some answers. Over the past 3 years, this council has authorized. The thing you need to keep in mind is this is authorizing. This is not going out for sale and getting money from bonding. Keep that in mind. You have authorized $115.3 million in capital improvement project requests. If you rubber stamp this $39.1 million, the total amount of debt authority placed in the hands of city staff is $154.5 million. Let that sink in, $154.5 million. In taxpayer-backed debt, authorized, available, and largely unaccounted for in terms of actually funding. Now here's the part that should concern all of you. The last time the city actually issued bonds and received funding was back in 23, 3 years ago. So the big question that I would have is, how are we funding the current projects? Well, buried in the project sheets in the CIP, there's a couple of lines that say, this project started using leftover funds from another project. Now that may sound harmless, but that's not how municipal finance works, or is supposed to work. And more importantly, it's not in compliance with New Hampshire law. Under RSA 33.3 and 33.3A, bond proceeds must be used solely for the specific project they were approved for. If funds are left over, the law requires a vote by the council to repurpose them. It is not legal nor acceptable for the city staff to move money, bond money, from one project to another without explicit authorization. This isn't a technicality. This is a breakdown of financial oversight and a breach of public trust. You are being asked to authorize tens of millions of dollars in debt. While there are serious unanswered questions, I will get to those, about how previously authorized funds have been handled. Before you vote on this 39.1, and you've already voted some of it through with not that many questions, why haven't any bonds been issued since FY23? These are some questions that I would expect this council to be asking. How are the projects being funded if we didn't go out and get proceeds to do that? 131 million authorized debt is no laughing matter. The taxpayers deserve clarity and transparency, and the law demands compliance. This isn't about the numbers. It's about your legal responsibility to the taxpayers who elected you. So now, I'm going to go through some of the questions that I had that I was hoping that I would hear tonight, but I didn't. So, and I also did groupings here. So we have 3 or 4 sections that you're asked to authorize. Obviously, school, no problem. When you come into general, water, and sewer, a lot of your projects are combined. So my first one, when I look at city facilities, in your general, you haven't got to that, but that's fine. I'm just going to hit this now. We've got, you asked for FY26 City Hall HVAC improvements, $500,000. And you also asked for citywide facilities capital improvements, $1,100,000. The question is, why are they listed separately and then duplicated in citywide requests? I could go over the citywide requests that are duplicated here. The HVAC, we've asked for HVAC money in general. We've asked for it for police. And we've also asked for all of the improvements, some of which were done. I had witnessed some of them that are on the list to be completed. For example, the taking down of the tower over with the heating facility, that's on there to be, you're asking for money to do that when it's already done. I witnessed it. And a lot of the other projects. So the removal of the City Hall boiler building chimney should not even be in here. Why are we asking for money to do something that's already, to cover something that's already been done? I would ask you to think about that. Next thing that's on that list, DPW complex upgrades. Requested separately and authorized in 2025, $3 million. But if you look at the project sheet, the start date is 2027, with the description of, this project will provide water and sewer upgrades to improve operations, including high bay garages, critical equipment that requires indoor storage. Please, how does this roll into water and sewer? I'm not going to even go into the details that I did not understand. I sat here and I listened to the Coakley-Borthwick presentation by Mr. Eby. And the CIP page had a different type of publication last time. The question is why? Last time it was about the bridge, this time it's about the culvert. Why all of a sudden are the Portsmouth taxpayers being asked to pay and pick up the $1 million? Because we can't wait for the state. That would be my question as a taxpayer. The next thing I would like to ask, and this is in 2 or 3 places, we have put money aside for the for Prescott Park in FY19 and FY22 and in FY25, all authorized, not issued. It's sitting there, authorized. The total is $7.825 million. The next one that I really like to comment on, since we had somebody come up here and say that the website will have all the information, is Fleet Street. So Fleet Street is on here. We had, per the project page, if you go into the, and I did, go into the website and look at the project page for Fleet Street, there's no estimated start date. The listed estimated cost on Fleet Street is $11.2 million. Before you okay the Fleet Street utilities in general, water, and sewer of total of $6 million, there's $13 million in there. So the total for that would be $19 million. And yes, I am including in the area utilities undergrounding because it had to do with this project. So my question is, if the estimate on the page says 11.2, why are we asking for and adding up the new request to 19 million? And I had the same question as Councilor Cook on Chapel Street. I went in, the Chapel Street is not listed anywhere at all, but we are asking for 1.5 million from what, 750 from water and 750 from sewer. The other questions I would have on sidewalks, we asked for 4 million. On sidewalks, we asked for 800,000 every 2 years. We also have asked for, now it's up to 3 million in 24 and 26 for Elwyn Park. When is this project going to start? Does this have to do with DOT? What's the start date? Why do not the request match what's on the website that you're telling the residents who are funding this and the counselors? Why doesn't it match? And why don't we have a start date on this? Why are you asking for money early? I think that's about it. The only thing I do want to reiterate to you also is the RSA. This is RSA 33.3, purpose and issue of bonds. You can issue bonds for anything in the municipality that's due. The thing that I saw on the city facilities, you can't issue a bond for. If you go down in the RSA, it said a municipality or county shall not issue bonds or notes to provide for payment of expenses or current maintenance and operation except as otherwise specifically provided. Painting, carpet, anything upgrading offices, that's maintenance. So that should not be included in the request for the bond of 1.1 million. That's also on the accounting side, what you can capitalize and what you can't. So those would be my questions, and I would ask you to think about this before you rubber stamp all of these, going through and ask the questions. This is authorizing it. The other question I would have that is a little concerning when reading the resolution is that on all of these it says on the bottom, I'm looking at the general one, the 14 million, including the payment of costs incidental or related thereto. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean to me that this is a blank check and everything that has to do with this goes in here and you're approving it, you're authorizing it before they go out to bond? These are some of the questions that I would like answers to as a resident who will be responsible for this debt coming forward. And since I covered everything, I won't be bothering you again, but hopefully you'll ask some questions based on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Petra. A couple of questions based on, are there other speakers on public comment? Any on Zoom? Closing the public hearing. Wanted to make a couple of comments and ask a couple of questions. First, we do need a public hearing if we're going to reissue a bond. That is happened recently when we had a public hearing on June 9th to reissue the remainder of they came in under budget on the Robert Lister Academy. We repurposed the proceed or the money from that bond to then go into security upgrades at the elementary school. We did that with a public hearing on June 9th. The second point I'd like help with, and I remember we passed this money a couple of times, so apologies if folks at home, we don't have as many questions on it, but we discuss it at the capital improvement plan. That's when we first discuss what we're going to spend money on. The second part of where we have this process is we issue bond authorizations. The third part is that we actually issue the bonds. And so I'm trying to remember, because I feel like we've done one before 2023. When was the last time, City Manager, we've issued bonds, and what were those amounts?
We've issued bonds the last 3 Junes now, and bear with me a moment, because Andrew Pergo was kind enough to just get that information for me. In 2024, we issued $43.3 million. In 2025, we issued $25.2 million. So total over the last 2 Junes would be $68.5 million. And Bonds Council is always very careful to advise us on whether we have the correct language. And in the case of what the mayor suggested, when the bond was looking to be repurposed, we had to rescind the remaining amount and get reauthorization and reapproval for new uses.
Thank you, City Manager. Councilor Bagley.
Thank you, Your Honor. Follow-up question, City Manager. Isn't that when we have our AAA bonding is reaffirmed, when we go out to bond and it comes back?
Correct. The order of things is we get the bond rating from Standard & Poor's or from Moody's, then we can take that to the bond market. So typically we get the bond rating update in the May timeframe and go to market in June.
Thank you.
Councilor Tabor.
Yeah, question for the city manager. My recollection is that we approved the $7.5 million for Prescott Park in the CIP, but I don't think we ever voted to bond that, did we?
We only have a small portion of that bonded. I think it's known as Phase 1A or Phase 1A and B. So we still have some remaining monies from the first phase, but not the entire amount.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Any other questions of Councilor Cook?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. And this is a question for the city manager. I just want you to correct me if I'm wrong. It's my understanding that we approve things in the CIP budget and then we approve the bonding, but we don't go to actually bond projects until we know that we're ready to initiate them. And a lot of times after we get a bid, the project might change slightly. And so that's why we don't immediately bond things.
Correct. Or it could be the timing is such that we're waiting on some other funding source that hasn't come through yet. Correct.
Councilor Morrell.
If I remember correctly, the timing on the Coakley and the culvert, it's all based off of the New Hampshire DOT schedule.
Correct.
So we are now on target with what their schedule is and any additional funding that they're bringing to the table.
Correct. The idea was to be poised and ready for when they were coming online. Correct.
Councilor Bagley.
Sorry, Your Honor. Final comment on this, and Director Rice could correct me if I'm wrong, but a number of years ago, Fleet Street was going to happen, and then in order for it to happen, we realized we had to do improvements to the sewage or drainage downstream of that. So then another project jumped in front of Fleet Street, and then I think Von Mall has since jumped in front of Fleet Street. So while we vote on these schedules and they all look good on paper, when we go to pull the permits and do all the groundwork and all the detailed engineering, often the deck gets shuffled, and that's why we might approve bonding for something and then the project doesn't start for another 3 years. It's not because we don't want to do the project, it's because with this old city like this, I always liken it to when you have a really old home and you open up the walls. When we open up the streets, we always find stuff, and it's never good and it's never less expensive.
If I can weigh in on that, Your Honor, that is correct, and factor into that an escalation or an inflation factor that we may not have initially budgeted for at the time of approval.
All good points. I think that, and I thank Public public hearing speaker for once again raising these points on a somewhat complicated way of financing municipal government. I do think that there is an opportunity in the website as we find, especially as we have more, as software improvements allow us to better project and account for some of the spending, to share this information on the public so that there is more understanding of this and not having to give, Excel sheets to pour through. That, our goal is to be able to provide this information because the truth of the matter is from where I sit, we spend the money incredibly well. And, I'm going to be biased in saying that, but that was a conversation that I had with Executive Counselor Janet Stevens in a conversation at the last Executive Council meeting where they were able to secure, some additional funds, projects, and we've invited Councilor Stevens to speak to those in September when everybody's back and can pay attention and to learn a little bit about this. One of the reasons why she's effective in fighting for Portsmouth to get more funds is that she's able to point to the ways in which we spend those monies efficiently and effectively, and we work through the projects to deliver. That's why we had loan forgiveness at the Pease wastewater or the Pierce Island wastewater treatment plant. That's why we're looking to receive that at the Pease wastewater treatment plant as well. And so I think the more information that we can get, the better. So the residents that want to look into this can do so. But our job here is to set a process that allows us many bites of the apple to call into question. The first, again, capital improvement plan. It's when we first have the question of, whether or not we're doing something and putting it in the plan. And I do remember this last capital improvement plan, there were some doubts on Prescott Park. And in terms of assuaging those doubts, we went through and said, well, we get another bite at the apple when you authorize this, and whether or not we're going to authorize this, and then finally issuing the debt itself to do those projects. And so I do appreciate the public comment, and I also appreciate the process that we have. Feel confident that what we decided upon a month ago in our budget still holds true, and we will bond towards these projects and begin work as soon as possible. We will have a roll call vote.
Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCaffrey?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Your Honor, did we make the motion
I don't think we made the motion.
verbally? I don't recall if we did or not.
It was a long time.
I thought, okay, might not have. I was kind of
Wanna
looked
make
through.
sure.
I talked so long that Kelly had to take all these notes. And then
Several
she
pages long.
Couldn't look
I
back.
might have missed the cue.
See that. All right, so why don't we, just for the purposes of belt and suspenders, can we have a motion to adopt the resolution as presented?
Your Honor, I'd move to adopt the resolution as presented.
Second?
And we'll have another roll call vote.
Yes, ma'am. Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCaffrey?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you, Kelly. Now, public hearing and adoption of resolution authorizing a bond issue and/or notes of the city under the Municipal Finance Act and/or participation in the state revolving fund, SRF loan program up to $11,450,000 related to annual water line replacement. Wait, we did this one?
Yeah, we're on
Yes.
H.
Public hearing and adoption of resolution authorizing a bond issue and/or notes of the city under the Municipal Finance Act of up to $14,555,000 for costs related to City Hall HVAC improvements, citywide facilities capital improvements, financial software, Elwyn Park traffic calming and pedestrian flow plan, Market Square upgrades, citywide sidewalk reconstruction program, Kate Street Bridge replacement, Coakley-Borthwick Connector roadway, street paving management and rehabilitation, Pease International Trade Port roadway rehabilitation, Fleet Street utilities upgrade and streetscape, citywide storm drainage improvements. Are there any council questions? And now I will open it up to the public hearing. Any speakers to, for, or against?
Good evening. Tyler Garzo, 62 McKinley, which is in Elwyn Park. So I wanted to speak specifically on the Elwyn Park traffic calming project. I want this project to proceed, but DPW is not hearing me on this, so I wanted to bring it to the council's attention. The project is focused on my street, McKinley Road, and the final stretch to Dondero, which is Van Buren. In its current form, this is a road widening project. The current design uses 36.5 feet of right-of-way. It's 29 feet in front of me, my house, right now, and it's 26 feet in the next block. That's the current conditions. They want to use 36.5. Traffic calming projects should be about reducing asphalt, not playing with drainage, which is largely what's being authorized in this bond issue, and trying to get pedestrians out of way, which is what the project is turning into right now. Generally, with the bond issue, this is a $14.5 million issue with 25% fat, it looks like. The Coakley Connector, the Kate Street Bridge, street paving in excess of what is actually needed. And yes, I know that there are consultants involved with the street paving requests, and they're just traffic engineers. They want traffic to move as fast as possible, and repaving roads is how they do that. Look at the disparity between sidewalk spending, $800,000, and asphalt for cars, and you can see the issue that's going on here. Councilors, there's not enough money in Future Citizens to continue to blindly support single passenger automobile infrastructure. It's simply not efficient. Walkability and urban density is what has made this city valuable, the downtown core. It's where all the tax revenue is actually generated as opposed to being spent. And the walkability and density is what makes this city valuable for future generations, the ones who have to pay the bills. You can't have cake and eat it too. Thank you for listening to me. And I really would like some answers in the Elwyn Park traffic calming thing. Widening the road and then pretending that it's a traffic calming project. I've spoken at the public meetings. I've sent emails. I'm not getting a sufficient response on this, and it's right in front of my house. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tyler. Any other speakers to, for, or against? Last one of Eric or Peter on the where are we in terms of the citizen, I guess, agreement on the plan to move forward at the Elwyn Park?
Good evening, Peter Rice, Director of Public Works. The section of road in front of Tyler's property is not finalized yet. We did receive comment from him, and I do not share his opinion relative to the process that we've gone through to date. We are currently focused on the area right near the Dondero School, and that's the monies will not be able to cover the entire area, so we've broken it up into parts or phases. He's correct. There is a drainage concern in the area. A lot of the storm drains in Elwyn Park are undersized and need to be addressed. When you build sidewalks, what happens is you channelize the water and you need places for it to go. So that does impact the process. But we are still in the process of doing design for that section of roadway. We're focusing on finalizing the first phase, which is down near Dondero, and we look forward to continue having conversations with the residents.
Thank you, Peter. So to paraphrase a little bit here and just maybe stick around, see if I get it right or get it wrong. This project has gone on for a while. I can't, there's been many people that have been very supportive of sidewalks, and then some neighbors that have been very less supportive of sidewalks. And with sidewalks come and I don't want to steal the speakers because I'm forgetting what the speaker said, but something along the line of a drainage expansion or disguised as and that's typically, I guess, like what a lot of when we put in sidewalks, it does channelize it, and it costs a lot of money to do so, to get the water away from where it would otherwise just kind of go off into the grass, and you don't have to worry about it. So when we have sidewalks, that tends to cause a lot of money to be spent because we have to put drainage in there, and then obviously the plowing cost of the sidewalks happens, and not every resident thus far is supportive. I guess to get to a question, on the lower part where it's closer to the school, are we at more of a consensus on what's going to happen, or are we still looking to find consensus there?
We believe we're
Close to
we
almost
believe
consensus.
we believe we're at consensus. However, I'm sure there are others that will dispute
But not
that
on the
point.
part that, like, in the first phase of this, not the second phase of the first phase.
Correct.
Or-
Yeah, down right on the streets immediately adjacent to Dondero. I believe we have firm support relative to that approach at this time.
Councilor Cook?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm just wondering, is it going to be possible to narrow this roadway a little bit? Driving through Elwyn Park, you always do notice that the roadways are very wide, and it encourages people to drive rapidly. So I understand the concern around narrowing the road, and I just don't know how much we're going to be able to do. And so I'm curious about that.
There are a number of treatments that we've looked at. Putting curbing in along an area, which then has parking along sides, does have the effect of narrowing the roadway. The overall width may be wide, but is not. We're not widening the roadway. The intent is to address the intersections in particular for traffic calming. There's been a lot of back and forth relative to this project, and we've been trying to strike a balance between the different property owners and desires. We believe we're coming in to that consensus. I know sections of it, especially up near Tyler's property, is still in flux, and there's some concerns relative to its proximity to the Route 1. So there's discussion about what's the appropriate width at that location. So we have not, it has not gone on deaf ears. We are still in the process of evaluating it. It has not been finalized.
Thank you.
All right, so Peter, maybe just one more question on this. And again, this is something in the capital improvement plan, but there's multiple bites of the apple here, and there's multiple times that public engagement can happen. Is it fair to say that you guys, both you and Tower, usually just try to say public comment speaker, but you and Tyler you're saying that the roadways are becoming narrow because when you put a curb that pushes the car out further into the center of the lane, and he's saying, well, the road is now wider because a lot of residents, at least residents have heard, have not yet been converted to a reducing the amount of cars, and so they want to ensure that there's cars still, when they're driving out there, that they can park outside their house and not in their driveways, et cetera. Is that where we're getting the disconnect?
And I think what happens too is when we do these roadway projects, we tend to try to make them uniform because they tend to flare in and out. So in front of Tyler's property, it may actually get wider because we've trying to make it consistent along the length of the roadway. But the intent of the roadway project is not to widen and to not take people's grass area to put a sidewalk in. So, I don't have it in front of me at the moment. I know we've been going back and forth relative to the design, and it has not been finalized yet. So, at this point, I would say I am aware of Tyler's concerns. So are the design engineers, and we are still in the process of going through that. But where we were focusing on the first phase, it kind of was put into the back burner in the near term. So we will be revisiting it. We will have more public input before it's finalized, and we'll come to consensus.
I do think that, Councilor Bagley from PTS.
Thanks, Your Honor. Since I've been on the council, consensus is a tough one to draw here. There is a great number of residents and parents for the school there that are surprised we don't have sidewalks. and there's a great number of residents that are adamantly opposed to sidewalks there. So I think Director Rice is in a very challenging position where trying to draw consensus from such polarizing views is difficult. And I've been watching the process for a number of years, and I think he's done a very good job of listening to everyone, trying to get input. But I don't want to give the impression that everybody's happy, because I think with this project,
I don't think
that's not going to be the case. There's no perfect solution out there that'll make the vast majority of people happy.
I do think that just broadly, and as we enter into the master plan, and we have the bike pedestrian master plan that's coming up. I think that when it comes to traffic calming, part of the issue that we have is reaching consensus using tools that are counterintuitive. I remember my first time on the council. Not the only mistake, but one of the mistakes that I realized as quickly as I did that I needed to correct is when I asked for a flashing light in my neighborhood because my neighbors asked for this flashing light, and it was pointed out to me that this would give the illusion rather than the actual safety. So I went to PTS and stated that I rescinded that it was a mistake. What has worked on Bartlett Street so far is making the cars park on the curb, or putting curbs in there, defining those curbs, and having more cars so it feels like you're on Cabot Street versus Bartlett Street, and it has slowed down the cars. But that was counterintuitive, and everybody that's in the neighborhood wants to feel safe. But the safer, and this is only for people that are not for Peter or for Tower, but only people that are cluing into this portion of the meeting. But we've talked about the sidewalks at this hour after all this, and Elwyn, that if you want cars to slow down, you have to feel less comfortable driving on there, because we are never going to have enough cops to enforce all of the traffic laws. And even if we did, it's impossible. And so if you want to drive slower, you have to feel less comfortable driving fast. And we can't get everybody you learn this. It's one of the things you do learn on the city council or on PTS, that's something that does work. But short of that, Tower's going to have to go door to door to try to convince the rest of the folks in the neighborhood around this. When we talk about this, glad to hear that the conversation is still going. This authorization will still come back for a final issuance. So before a project goes forward, there'll be another opportunity to discuss this, and hopefully we get closer to consensus. And finally, in the master plan, I hope that we can align on traffic calming measures that will be broadly implemented into the city if we want to move forward, that are vetted and agreed upon, and start with that as a baseline instead of trying to figure out how to reinvent the wheel every time we go forth, so we can have an easier path of voting it up or down, and people and residents can learn the benefits and limitations of the options that we have as a city to present. Because the other thing is, as soon as we put some traffic calming measures, the neighborhood doesn't want, or the neighborhood might want them, but the rest of Portsmouth doesn't want them because they cut through there. So we need to collectively as a city agree on traffic calming measures that can work in any neighborhood so that they can apply to every neighborhood. But that is far afield of a budget authorization. So we're gonna take that vote now. Councilor Bell.
Your Honor, I move to adopt the resolution as presented.
Second.
We'll have a roll call vote with no further questions.
Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McCackron?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Next up, city manager's items which require action.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have 10 tonight, and I will move through them. The first is the acceptance of the much anticipated Bicycle and Pedestrian Network Plan. We were proud to present this back in June, and we've aired this for public comment. We did not get any additional public comment in the period between our June 23rd meeting and tonight. We are looking for acceptance of the plan so that we can move forward to working through some implementation items and to move forward with the goals and recommendations set forth.
Your Honor, I move to accept the Portsmouth Bicycle and Pedestrian Network Plan update as presented and commit to the goals and recommendations set forth within the plan.
Second.
Councilor Denton.
and I'll be incredibly brief. As someone who used to ride my bicycle to work year-round at the shipyard, I think there's a lot of great recommendations in here. My favorite is having some sort of sensor when there's a bicycle at a traffic light waiting to go. As someone who would go down State Street all the way to the shipyard, if you're on a bicycle at State Street waiting to cross the middle, at least at that time you couldn't, but such a thing would allow the sensor to turn without a car behind you.
Any other comments before? Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. I absolutely support this plan. I think it's great that we have updated it. The critical part, though, to any plan is implementation. So we really have to move forward with implementation and hopefully more quickly than we have in the past, because our community is moving more towards being a biking and pedestrian community, and it's challenging sometimes to keep up with those movements, and we have to start implementing this plan as soon as possible. I know I received several requests from residents to set up an advisory committee to help with implementation of this plan, and there are some challenges around that always. Whenever we set up a committee at the city level, that means staff hours are committed to that, and we have public meetings that usually occur once a month. That sometimes doesn't always speed the process. Sometimes it actually slows the process. So I think it would be really critical for, and my recommendation would be for the Parking and Traffic Safety Committee and the Sustainability Committee to talk with one another and to discuss putting together a working group of individuals who are concerned about implementation so that they can help move this process forward without setting up a formal committee. So that's just my perspective. I think it's really important that we do have a group of concerned citizens who want the process to move forward quickly, and that they continue to push things that are in this plan.
Yep, certainly heard that request through a number of folks that reach out, and while I agree that it could be a positive, it's, in my guess, or my estimation, would ultimately be less than effective because the authority would not rest with them to implement, but just to suggest. And so one thing that we might want to consider, given that we do have a representative of the Chamber of Commerce on the EDC, we might want to look at changing the ordinance to allow a member of SABRE to sit on PTS as an advisor. That way that those Portsmouth resident, but always have the voice there regardless of administration or pleasure of the council, and it could get that perspective and speak to the concerns that are raised in the plan, and be a faster way to implement changes to the plan in the system that we already have. Councilor Blaylock.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm very excited to see this plan. I hope this encourages more people to bike. I like to see that it's going every direction. We thought about all the different areas, destinations you want to get to. As someone who lives on Greenland Road, which is the other side of town, the town next to Greenland, I ride my bike a lot now. But having the rail trail, having the bike lane that is in Middle Street now, there's been a lot of improvements, and I look forward to even more improvements, and just having people feel more comfortable on their bikes. Even like the kids I coach, I noticed they're a lot more. They're starting to use their bikes now to go to practice and stuff, and I feel like that happened a lot more when I was a kid, but I'd like to see it encouraged and happen more and more. Healthy lifestyle.
Indeed. Councilor Tabor.
Thanks, Your Honor. I think it's a great idea if we could have a bike advocate on PTS, and if we combine that, I know that we are able to use a video camera to automatically do bike counts in the bike lanes. So if we tracked the usage and we had an advocate on PTS, that could be part of the regular meeting. And if we're not increasing our bike activity, why not? What are the limiting factors? I think that would prompt some healthy discussion.
Councilor Bagley.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just want to clarify, I agree with your suggestion for the bike advocate on the EDC, not PTS, or did I misunderstand that?
Oh, no, I thought we would put them on PTS.
Okay, for some reason I was thinking the EDC. Okay. Because
Well-
there's nobody from the chamber on PTS.
No, sorry, so
Oh.
it would follow the same model that the EDC has, where they have a representative of the chamber being on the EDC, so as to represent the chamber. And the chamber is the Chamber Collaborative, so it no longer represents simply the city of Portsmouth, but the broader, region. I think Seacoast area bicycle riders, could find themselves in a similar position of being advocates for, bikes and transportation and recreation as they have been. There might be, looking back in terms of when, things, there were advocacy work, but so it would remains to see if that, would ultimately work out. But I would think that if it could be on PTS, as we do have, obviously members of the community, members of police, of fire safety, of Peter, it might be, or DPW. It might be an opportunity to have, a constituent that represents a number of constituents in the city and regionally, speak, to their expertise on issues that come before PTS.
Okay.
It would require an ordinance change, though. But, I did start thinking when we got the last thing I want to do is create another committee that, not just staff time, but their time too. We have to have a feeling like when something happens, there's going to be a reaction to it. We got a great plan. It's about implementing that plan. There's no necessary deadlines in any of this because we can't really compel future councils, and so we can't put deadlines here. But if we could have, a goal to have more representation on PTS, would love to hear maybe, potentially what PTS would hear, but I'd leave that in your hands, Councilor Bagley, to see if that's something, and if it is, to bring it up for an ordinance change as a result, of the implementation of the bike ped network plan.
Ron, if I could, there's just one other element of this that I think bears some discussion. As we're getting a multi-use path now on Beverly Hill Road, and a lot of our playing fields have moved to the community campus. Although everybody tends to think of the downtown and that stretch of Middle Street down to State Street as the most important, there's kids in Elwyn Park and Maple Haven, and those kids need to get to the fields. They need to get to Beverly Hill Road. And so I think it's important that we boost the priority of the crosswalks, from Elwyn Road and from Wilson Road, and those areas, to get kids able to go to the playing fields at community campus, things like that.
Yep, I certainly agree. And when we get things that result in, a benefit, not necessarily a shift in how people are thinking, but, how they can act, that changes their thinking, and so the more that we can invest in infrastructure that allows people to get on bikes, do it safely, the more there'll be advocates.
Yeah.
All right, no roll call vote necessary. And any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you. Item number 2, similarly, is the acceptance of the Market Square Master Plan, which was developed with our helpful consultants Beta between February 2024 and just this past June. We were able to get much in the way of public outreach and input from stakeholders, from all sorts of folks. We were at several farmers markets, and I think the result is a plan that shows lots of promise. And in an upcoming year in the CIP, we will have an allocation planned for, or we plan to ask for one, to start to make some of these improvements within Market Square. And we're looking for support and acceptance of this plan.
Your Honor, I make a motion to move to accept the Market Square Master Plan as presented, commit to the goals and recommendations set forth within the plan.
Second.
Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. Councilor Bagley and I introduced the resolution to do an expanded Market Square Master Plan in January of 2023. And the motion specifically said that the goal was enhanced pedestrian access with expanded sidewalks, expanded sidewalk dining throughout downtown, and reduced traffic congestion, including possible redesign of traffic flow on State Street. It was really important that we move forward thinking about this plan as a way to improve pedestrian and bicycle access downtown and access for everyone. And the best way to do that was to do major traffic calming measures. The plan does provide some traffic calming, and I think that that's really critical, and that's a great part about the plan because it better defines Congress Street and Pleasant Street interactions, as well as where Market Street comes in and Daniel Street. At the same time, however, the plan doesn't quite go far enough. So I think that it's a very good first step in the right direction. It does identify some needs downtown that are really important, like expanded sidewalks, like space for additional bike parking. I mean, there are things that we definitively need, but it doesn't address some of the major concerns, I think, with the Market Square area and the downtown area. In fact, it doesn't have expanded sidewalks in all the spaces in the plan where there is currently on-street outdoor dining, so I have a concern around that. But it also does not address the traffic flow issues that we have on Daniel Street leading into Market Square because it doesn't consider the volume of traffic on State Street or additional calming measures that we could have on State Street or funneling traffic towards State Street in a way to reduce traffic flow on Daniel through the Market Square area. So I think that this was a good step in the right direction, but I don't think it really meets the goals that were outlined in January of 2023. I was fortunate to serve on the working group that helped support the consultants in this process, and I would say that we only had a few meetings, and they were very attentive, but at the same time, there were several issues that just really, I felt like weren't addressed in that process, and I would like to see a more robust plan. And the reason I'm saying this, and I think this is really important, is that we only get to do this once every 50 years. So the last time we redesigned Market Square was almost 50 years ago. So we don't get to plan again for another 50 years. The world is going to look very different in 50 years. Market Square, however, will look the way that we planned it today. And what we're planning for right now in this plan is today's society. The way we're operating currently, it's not very forward thinking about the way that people will be operating down the road. So those would be my concerns about the plan, that it just doesn't really address some of the major challenges we have downtown, like parking for scooters, like where do our electrical transformers go? How do we manage long-term planning around parking for bicycles? We just add some bicycle parking. We're not really thinking about what that looks like in 50 years. So I would say it just doesn't go far enough.
And Councilor Cook, Councilor Bagley, and Councilor Moreau.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm largely happy with it, but I do want to let everybody know that this Thursday at Parking, Traffic, and Safety, we're going to vote to approve the reduction from 3 lanes to 2 lanes on the end of Congress Street that goes into Islington. That's something we've been working on for a while, and it's also highlighted here in the plan. So we are, kind of like Von Mall and Fleet Street and all these different interacting streets. There's a plan that's kind of this big plan that it's going to take a number of years, but we're already moving forward on some of it. That will have to go to PTS to get voted on Thursday and then come to council to get approved. So there's still plenty of time for input, but some of these things are a few years away and some of them are coming up sooner than not.
Thank you, Councilor Bagley. I'm sure it will be a vigorous discussion. PTS, Councilor Moreau, and then Councilor Blaylock.
It was 2 years ago this month that I brought forward the idea of making State Street two-way to this council, and we've made some small steps in that direction, but I really truly feel that we can't properly redesign Market Square without doing that at the same time and looking at the redesign, because taking that traffic, which I think this plan really speaks to, is trying to lessen the traffic that's going into Market Square. You really want to have a reason to go down into Market Square because you're going somewhere to shop, or you're going somewhere to eat, or you're going to hang out, or you're going to the church. I don't want it to be a place where people are just have to drive through in order to get from point A to point B. So I really want to encourage, as we're implementing this plan, that we parallelly keep looking at and making State Street designed to be two-way, because I think that's going to be the way to make the Market Square that I think we all want.
Thanks, Councilor Morrow. Councilor Bullock.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm pretty impressed with the plan. I know we're doing this because we're ripping it up to replace a lot of the things underneath Congress Street. So it's going to be ripped up anyways, so why not put it back together the way you'd like it? But I don't want to go crazy and spend, a ton of the taxpayers' money. Downtown, we have a really nice downtown right now. Congress Street, the improvements we made 50 years ago drastically improved that square. Just adding more of that sidewalk in front of the old Break New Grounds. So I'm excited to see that, the Pleasant Street go to one lane going into Congress, because there's only ever one car going onto Congress from there. And I agree with the changes that are made at the end of Congress Street, because there's only really 2 lanes needed. People don't really use all 3. But I don't want to see some crazy plan where we're, going nuts here. I know everyone gets really excited about redesigning Market Square. Sounds like a lot of fun. But I get hesitant on spending too much and, trying to consider the taxpayer.
Thank you, Councilor Bullock. Any other comments, questions? Just Councilor Cook?
Thank you, Your Honor. I think that I need to emphasize that the whole reason I'm unhappy is because I don't think we're thinking about the taxpayer here. I think that if we plan for something that is not going to meet the needs of the city for the long term, then we're going to have to do it again. And we're going to have to do it again in 15 years instead of in 50 years. And so the goal of having a plan like this is that when we do rip up the roads, that when we put things back, we only have to do it once. And that saves taxpayer dollars. I'm not suggesting by any means that we do anything radical downtown or make any major changes. I'm just thinking that we should be planning for bike lockers. Where are we putting all the bike lockers? What are we doing with the parking for scooters? Because right now they're starting to take up quite a bit of sidewalk space, and we didn't expand sidewalks in places for scooter parking. Where's the planning around transformers for buildings as electrical upgrades occur? We don't have that in this plan. So there are a lot of things that we know we need right now that aren't addressed in the plan. And so I fear that if we don't do them, if we don't have a plan that addresses those things, that in 15 years we're going to have to do it all over again, and that's going to cost the taxpayers more money, or we're going to have problems that are created because, we end up with permanent parking on sidewalks that we didn't anticipate. So I would just say that I think that we need to do more. I doubt that, there's nothing in the CIP right now or any funding for doing more, which is unfortunate.
By way of, Your Honor, by way of CIP, there is $500,000 in the current fiscal year and another $1 million in FY28. So we skip a year.
It's not for planning.
Thank you, City Manager. Councilor Cook?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm just clarifying, I meant for planning, for changing the plan. There's money for implementation, but there's not money for changing this plan. So if we adopt it, this is the plan moving forward, unless the council chooses to spend more money on planning.
Thank you, Councilor Cook. Well, I'll add some comments because it's not 10:30 yet. I think that it does a reasonable job at getting a lot of competing interests for something that right now people think is fantastic. I think one of the things that I hope to see in this is more ways to get kids and families downtown, just attractions down there. The fountain, I think there was a talk about going up and down with the water level. That's a good idea. The widening sidewalks, you can have, strollers, certainly we are the ruckus capital of New Hampshire, at least, in terms of the scooters. But I think the issue with any plan, when we're trying to be central planners in the city of Portsmouth without reacting to need, is that a lot of folks the initial reaction to this was surprised that we were trying to improve something that wasn't in their eyes broken. Now we understand we have an idea that we're going to rip up the streets, so we're going we're going to break that portion of it, and how we put it back together is a way, what we're going to be able to discuss is, how do we do that? I think it offers flexibility in so much as, hey, hold on, what's going on back there? Sorry, I couldn't. It offers the flexibility, especially with the low curbs, to be able to expand, sidewalks even further, to be able to investigate in bollards, to come to a time point where we can solve outdoor dining, because outdoor dining, as we discussed, we all, we came to a realization that we all valued, parking revenue this year. That conversation next year is going to be harder with outdoor dining, as a result of those things. So making sure that we're able to have flexibility when it comes to that parking revenue, to be able to have it on weekends or high opportunity times when, people can move out tables. This plan will allow that in the future because of the lack of a step on the curb. And so we can expand areas for outdoor dining, with bollards and things like that as we come to it. I would agree with Councilor Moreau. If we want a big change, we're going to probably have to change something outside of this, because most people aren't looking for a big change. But I hope that as this gets implemented, we think about replacing the fact that we don't have the Connie Bean downtown anymore. We no longer have the post office downtown. If we want people to go downtown and to demand more public amenities downtown, and it's not just tourists walking through on their way to dinner from a hotel, that we need to make it so that we're getting more, residents into the downtown, and having ways, if it's a playscape or a play structure, getting families down there and getting in the process of doing it and making it as a part of the BAGPED network plan to be able to do so easily. But I think this is a great first step. I applaud the effort of getting, all the input in here. And it's a tough job when you're asking on Market Square Day, what do we want to change about this? Because most people are like, absolutely nothing at all. But we have an opportunity to improve it. And I think this goes a long way in taking a big step in making Congress a two-way street, because that will have flow-down effects.
You said Congress a two-way street? Two-lane street.
Yes, a two-way street. Not getting that radical. Not getting that radical yet. All right.
Just wanted to make sure that was
All right.
correct.
So we have the motion on the floor. Councilor Moreau, you gave it. It was seconded. Councilor Bagley. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Opposed.
Okay. Next up, we're still on the city managers.
Item number 3 is a request for approval of the tentative agreement with the Portsmouth Professional Management Association. This is one of the few remaining collective bargaining agreements to bring toward you. And in terms of salaries, this will make it retro back to July 1st, but the additional leave time and the new insurance rates will take effect August 21st. And the settlement of this collective bargaining agreement is similar with respect to the COLA and health insurance clauses in the other collective bargaining units.
Your Honor, I move to approve the tentative agreement with the Portsmouth Professional Management Association as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. Item number 4 is a request to name a handful of private streets associated with the new development at 100 Durgan Lane, the former Bed Bath & Beyond site. And the streets internal to the development have the proposed names of Page Street, Butler Way, and Sifton Street, while the unnamed access road that exists today connecting Arthur Brady Drive to Gosling Road is proposed to be named Dow Avenue. And the name Dow has some historical significance, as that was once the site of the former Dow Farm. So as the memo suggests, we have run these name requests by the state's E911, and they have no objection to the name, and there are no duplicative names in this zip code.
Your Honor, I move to approve the naming of private streets as shown to Dow Avenue, Page Street, Sifton Street, and Butler Way for the new development off of 100 Durgan Lane.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. Similarly, number 5 is a request to name a private street located at the former address of 635 Sagamore Avenue, the home for 4 new single-family dwellings with associated site improvements, and the access to the new homes will constitute a private street that the developer has requested the name of Lady Slipper Way, which similarly has been run through the state E911 with no objection and no duplicate names in the zip code.
Your Honor, I move to authorize the use of Lady Slipper Way as the private street name for the new private street originating at the former street address known as 635 Sagamore Avenue.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number 6 is a request for a revocable license located at 86 Haven Road. At our June 23rd council meeting, the council reviewed a request, and the request was that the city grant a license to install a drainage pipe on abutting city property located at City Tax Map 206, Lot 20, land that is part of the Little Harbor School property, in order for stormwater discharge on the owner's property to flow through the pipe and discharge near an existing city stormwater outfall. So the genesis of this request is to support the revocable license, allowing the owner to install the drainage pipe on city property in the location depicted on Exhibit A, and staff have reviewed and feel comfortable with this request.
Your Honor, I move to authorize the city manager to execute and deliver a revocable license allowing the owner of 86 Haven Road to install a drainage pipe on city property.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Item number 7 is approval of a memorandum of agreement with Local 1386A AFSCME, and this request is to reclassify an existing position to a higher grade on the salary schedule to reflect work performed by the existing individual and the expertise level we seek in this position. This does not add to the position or salary amount overall because there are savings in salary vacancies.
Your Honor, I move to approve the proposed memorandum of agreement with AFSCME Local 1386A as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Similarly, number 8 is approval of a memorandum of agreement with the Portsmouth Professional Management Association for the addition of a new title to our salary schedule outside of budget and negotiations for this collective bargaining agreement. This allows us some flexibility with hiring. This would add the title of Assistant Finance Director, which would be a slightly lower grade than Deputy Finance Director.
Your Honor, move to approve the proposed MOA with the Portsmouth Professional Management Association as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you, and thank you to HR Director Kelly Harper, who's been on Zoom. You're all set, Kel.
Wow.
Number 9 is a request for a revocable license for 18 Congress Street. This request came from the work that we performed recently on Church Street when we discovered that a portion of a pipe installed to heat the driveway and concrete ramp at 18 Congress did in fact encroach onto the city sidewalk. The site plan that originally approved, that was part of the approval for 18 Congress, did not indicate the location of the pipe, so we did not know it was there. It was damaged when we resurfaced Church Street, and so we are working with the condominium association to repair the pipe. And as such, we recommend that the association request a revocable license from the city in order to memorialize the exact location of the pipe where it is reinstalled. And it is shown in the exhibit in your packet, and all departments involved support this request.
Your Honor, I move to authorize the city manager to execute and deliver a revocable license to the association for the installation and maintenance of a pipe on city property.
Second?
Just a quick question. This is a heating pipe? What's the...
It's to heat the driveway and the ramp for the
Okay.
private property.
Okay. And it'll be done before it's needed in the winter?
That is correct.
Awesome. All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Last request, Your Honor, is acceptance of a temporary construction easement for property located at 2 Russell Street. You will recall we brought several requests relative to 2 Russell Street to the June 9th City Council meeting. What we did not do is include this last easement, which is a temporary construction easement. And once we do that, we'll be ready to go with building permits. So the planning board did recommend acceptance of this temporary easement as part of the larger set of easements.
Your Honor, I move to authorize the city manager to accept and record a temporary construction easement from Port Harbor Land LLC in a substantially similar form to the easement deed contained in the agenda packet.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Next, we have the consent agenda.
Your Honor, I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have presentations and written communications. First, email correspondence.
Move to accept and place on file.
Second?
All in favor? Hold on. Any discussion?
Quick comment, former Councilor Nancy Pearson wrote a short email referencing the prior plan that went into the Von Mall, and I think it's worth looking at that, having reviewed that numerous times during my last 2 terms on the council.
First 2.
Yep, so did read it, did note it. When, just to make sure that it's not, and I don't think it would not be, pulled in to the further conversations, but do we want to take action specific to that email correspondence as it pertains to sending to any relative authority? Councilor Cook?
Your Honor, I move to divide the question and move out the email from former Councilor Nancy Pearson for separate action.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And then we will vote on email correspondence,
First.
which we have as to accept and place on file. All in favor?
Aye. And, Your Honor, I move to refer the email from former Councilor Nancy Pearson to to the Department of Public Works and to, I believe, the Public Art Review Committee also has looked at the plans for Von Mall for review.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Next, a letter from Rodney Rowland of Strawberry Bank requesting the gift of 150 linear feet of used granite curbing as a part of a flood resiliency project.
I move to approve with the coordination by the Department of Public Works.
Second?
Is there, Councilor Morrow?
I was just curious, do we actually have this laying around?
We have pieces of granite for purposes that we have from time to time. And Peter Rice and his staff were kind enough to visit that pile of granite with Rodney and some other folks in the museum. And they were able to identify pieces that are not of terrible value to the city, but would be helpful to fill in some of their need. It will not meet all of their need. They'll still have to source some granite on their own, but this will help supplant what they need. And because it has a certain level of value, we found it appropriate to bring to you to be aware.
Councilor Cook?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm excited about the prospect of the city preparing a gift of granite to Strawberry Bank because a lot of their flooding issues are related to street overflow flooding from the city. So I think it's nice that they're moving forward with their plans to address some of the stormwater challenges that they have on their site, and I'm thrilled that the city is willing to be a partner in that.
Councilor Cook? Any other questions? Just if anybody else asks if they're looking for granite, is there a typical, I remember we've sold granite before. Is there a typical process where these would go out to, like, I understand that these are not the type of granite we'd stick in a curb, but there is typically a process where this would be done, or we would sell this on a procurement open.
I think if we hit a certain level of surplus that we really knew we didn't need, we would put it out for surplus. But it's a matter of keeping this granite around to the extent we need it. Peter could probably tell you the age of some of these pieces. I don't think the requests are very common to grab granite from this surplus lot.
The granite varies in age from, relatively new, 10 years old, which is a thinner type of granite, more modern type granite, to some older pieces. There are a number of pieces that we would not want to give away just because of, the unique nature of the city's streets and things like that. There's a couple large flat pieces that we want to hold on to, but most of the stuff that hasn't been auctioned off yet is broken up smaller pieces. But Rodney felt there was enough there that it was of interest, so we would assign a staff member to help sift through it and pull out what's they feel is appropriate.
Thanks, Peter. I mean, great cause to be able to put it there, and all the granite's super old, except when it was cut, I suppose, is relatively
That's
new.
true. It's all really old.
But if it can go towards helping them with their flood, their stormwater issues, certainly happy to see that happen. Thank you, Peter. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have an appointment to be considered. The appointment of Anna Howard as a regular member of the Economic Development Commission, filling an unexpired term until October of next year. I'd ask you to consider and reach out with any questions, or to Tom Watson, Chair of the EDC. And now to Councilor Moreau.
Thank you. Following feedback from other city council members at our last meeting on July 14th, I met with some residents of the Hill Hanover neighborhood, as well as members of the city planning staff and legal staff regarding the zoning on the properties on the south side of Foundry Place. As you recall, representatives from mostly residential neighborhoods have advocated for nearly a decade to ensure that these properties serve as a transition zone between the larger, more commercial buildings closer to downtown and the smaller residential properties along Hanover and abutting streets. Zoning that was put in place back then created an unusually sharp divide between downtown and residential. Out of these most recent meetings, neighbors and staff identified 4 simple zoning changes that can accomplish most of the stated goal while preserving the ability to develop these properties in a manner consistent with their position relative to downtown. The first is to change the boundary of the downtown overlay district so that it aligns with Bridge Street corridor. This overlay district is focused on ensuring a walkable downtown by requiring commercial uses on the first floor. This makes sense for the commercialized Bridge Street, but not along the narrow Hill Street, nor along the corner of Hanover and Rock Streets. Earlier this year, the zoning board also recognized this when it granted the request of the developer of the old Heidemann building property to allow entirely residential use on the first floor of their proposed buildings. Second, the 2 most westerly of these lots will have zoning change from CD5 to CD4, more befitting their distance from the downtown in proximity to more residential neighborhoods in the CD4L1 and GRC zones that directly abut them. The property closest to Bridge Street and the one along the railroad remains CD5. The developer of the Hyman property reworked their plan such as now more consistent with the CD4 than the CD5 plan. Third, the height of building facades along Hill Street will be changed from a maximum of 4 full stories and 50 feet to a height to allowance for short 4-story and 45 feet in height. This will create a transitional buffer across the narrow Hill Street with the smaller residential properties located there, where those properties are limited to 3 stories and 40 feet of height, should they be redeveloped in the future. Building facades along Bridge Street and Foundry Place remain unaffected. Fourth, the North End incentive overlay district would be realigned to end at Foundry Place rather than Hill Street. This overlay district allows additional building height if a developer meets certain incentives and was envisioned to be applied to larger developments expected to the north and east of this neighborhood. These incentives require wide sidewalks, which are not currently found either along Hill Street or south side of Foundry Place. Therefore, it makes sense to realign the district to truly represent the north end rather than include this transitional residential neighborhood. These changes do not address all of the neighborhood concerns, but they do deal with the most urgent ones, while also providing a fair opportunity for sensible redevelopment of the affected properties. The master planning process can then be used to find additional ways to address the desires of all concerned parties. And just to add to that a little bit, if you really think about it, you're taking this neighborhood and you're saying it's downtown, but it's really not. You're saying it's in the north end, but really it's west of the city. So I just think realigning the overlay districts is super important because we aren't downtown and we aren't the north end.
Thank you.
I'll end with that.
Councilor Morrell. Councilor Lombardi.
I guess there were 3 people. Mr. Adams Peter Hackney and John Gray all expressed concerns. How do they feel about this plan? They weren't here tonight, so I couldn't ask.
I'll let you know, 2 Grays are on Zoom right now.
Oh, okay.
Brad and John.
I did not have contact information to reach these, and I was limited on time as to how many people I could talk to. So I brought this forward so we could discuss it and decide whether or not it would be worth bringing back forward for a public hearing. That was the thought process.
Okay, so it's on public, sorry, maybe I misunderstood. It's scheduled for a public hearing at the,
We postponed the public hearing till April 18th.
August 18th.
If I could.
Right?
August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
August, sorry. I said April, didn't I? Yeah, I'm
August,
getting
yeah.
a little.
We've been talking about it since April.
We have been talking about it since April. So yes, at August 18th is when we postponed the public hearing. So the idea was at August 4th meeting, which is tonight, I would bring forward some possible changes to what we've been talking about that might be feasible to move forward for the next second reading.
So just, I guess
So just as a kind of a point of order, I think what you have in front of you, if you're interested in the changes that are presented here, you could move to have them on for first reading or past first reading. If you go to first reading on August 18th, it would be the same time that you're already scheduled for a second reading on the pending.
why would we not, I guess, like, why would these just not be an amendment given at the 18th and update them? Because I guess, like, there's nobody here tonight to discuss this.
Right.
And so, like, I'd rather, like, I feel confident in some of the changes. I think from a, and we're not going to, don't believe we're going to take public comment here. So we'll have the conversation at the 18th. I think the hard part is when we start doing all the overlay districts, they're there, but like there should be a new overlay district there, in my opinion, that doesn't exist, that's going to have to be in the master plan. Like, from my opinion, we're not going to be able to carve these out because the proposal that was in front in this packet cut through a property line. Like,
But we actually have other properties that overlay districts cut through as well. It's not the only property. And the idea, if you think about it, the reason why we did that is because we only wanted to force them to have commercial. You can have commercial on the first floor anyways, under the CD5, but you would only be forced to have commercial on the first floor along Bridge Street. And that was the idea of doing that. It wasn't to not let them have commercial on the first floor all the way through, because the zone allows it, but the overlay district requires you to have commercial on the first floor. So this way, only the portion of the building facing Bridge Street would be required to do that.
okay.
That was the idea and thought process very carefully about that, so that they could still have residential on the first floor if they really wanted to.
Okay. The second was along the heights. I think the issue that had there, it seemed to affect the Gray Building in particular, that half of the building was going to be subject to height restrictions that are not applied to the other half of the building?
Correct. So we would have Foundry Place at the highest height and then drop down 5 feet to the next side of the building, because then the next side of that street drops down another 5 feet. So that becomes part of the transition. And that means that only 50 feet would be affected by that. So it would be 50 feet across, and then the other height takes advantage on the other side.
Yeah. So that it just seems like, from that, it seems like a lot of work, and for ultimately 5 feet there. When I think the crux of changing CD4 in the areas that were CD5 that already comply with CD4 seemed to be a reasonable plan to move forward and lock that in to make sure that that's something that, we're able to do. The other portions, at least from the hearing of the neighbors speak at public comment, were around uses. Abilities that we don't have the ability to affect within these zoning changes at the moment in terms of uses.
Correct. And we had a long discussion around that, and I have convinced them that because changing the uses in any way would affect the entire downtown, that we really need to do that through the master planning process.
Right. And so I think that, it's great to hear that type of feedback, because that's, from a standpoint there, I worry that if we're going to go down the path of changing more And I think we should have this conversation certainly earlier at the meeting on the 18th, first on the agenda. But, changing things outside of what I think was the impetus for this and making sure that, we're aligning that to what is already being proposed, and if the neighbors are happy or unhappy with that proposal. There seems to be changes outside of whether or not it used to be a CD5 and what was allowed there, under CD5 is not being proposed any longer by the developer. And so aligning that to CD4, which this plan proposes, seems like a good pathway forward, both for the neighborhood, in case this plan falls through, and the developer, in case this plan falls through and it's not something that's, going forward. Everybody can live with that. Outside of that, carving up where the North End overlay districts and the downtown overlay districts, I would like, if we're going to go down that path, I would like to see it a lot simpler, and maybe it wasn't simple because, although you did a great job of...
The maps are a little complicated to maneuver.
And I could, as somebody that does PowerPoint sometimes in my life, I realized just how much you were doing those little dots on there.
Oh,
and
it was a
appreciate
lot.
that.
It took me hours.
So I think that has to be a lot clearer. One thing that I don't think that we should probably tackle in this is the heights, because that's definitively going to affect the property values in a way that we, good or bad, but we might come back in 2 months or a year when it has the master plan, and we listen to those folks that are talking about the density required to actually put a dent in housing, and we're going to need those by right instead of by CUP, and that's going to be an expansion there. So like the height part is something that for the 5 feet of one property line, or for one property in particular, that seems like a big ask of that property to bear that without asking it of the entire area. That's where I have the issue with that specific building. But those are things that I think we should have this conversation at the 18th, regardless of where we settle tonight. Councilor Bagley.
While we think on that, can I make a motion to go past 10:30?
Yes. All in favor? Oh, wait,
Aye.
is this second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
No.
Yes. Okay. But, so do we have to take action this evening to put, I thought we had already scheduled.
I was hoping to get many counselors' opinions
Yeah,
about
okay.
this.
So you could wait to the 18th and move to amend what's on the proposal, or you could take this proposal and schedule it for a first reading. Either way, you're going to end up with another second reading for the map changes overall, depending upon which pieces you want of the pending version versus this proposed version.
Oh, okay. Sorry, to say one more piece then. I think we should at least do that so that the change, like, so that at least everybody that's coming into it will have, they'll have the understanding of what we're actually talking about. Again, I don't support some of the height changes here and happy to be convinced otherwise, but on that, but at least we'll be starting from a different, perspective than we are starting from right now, which is very convoluted. So I think the changes to adopt for first reading, knowing that we'll change that, or it will require second reading regardless. So we're going back to first reading with the new, okay. Counselor, wait, you've already had one bite at the apple. Counselor Cook and then Counselor Tabor and then back to Counselor Lombardi.
Thank you, Your Honor. In answer to your question about views on this, I think this is definitely a step in the right direction. It preserves that where the Foundry Garage is, that space that's CD5, which I think is important because it's already built out as CD5 essentially, and it also preserves it in the North End overlay, which I think is also valuable because it does fit the zoning currently for that area. But I also like the fact that this proposal pulls back the downtown overlay a little bit, because I never understood why the downtown overlay picked up those additional buildings beyond. I could understand, the Foundry Garage, but really that area is much more residential once you get behind Bridge Street. And so it seems logical that the downtown overlay only goes to Bridge Street and to the edges of Bridge Street, because then it becomes largely residential. I don't see that changing with all the development that's happened in that area anytime soon. So, thank you.
Question for Councilor Moreau. So the Bridge Street, as I understand it, the Bridge Street lot and the Gray's property is now CD5 and would come down by 5 feet.
It's still CD5 in the proposed plan, just one side goes down by 5 feet.
Okay, just to play devil's advocate, why not keep that at CD5? Because that is the closest to the downtown of all the properties. And makes the most sense to me to stay CD5.
It is CD5. We're not changing that.
It's the height.
It's the height on Hill Street where it's right next to two-story buildings, right? That's where all of the smaller, on Hill Street is where, especially that end is where all the smaller buildings are.
Yep.
So we were trying
All
to have a
3-story.
transition of height going into that Hill Street and Hanover, where there are 2- and 3-story buildings and not 4- and 5-story buildings
Okay.
on that one side.
It's specific to Dwyer's Pub is the building that would be most, like that
Most
property,
affected.
because the rest of it is on Hill Street that goes up.
Yep.
And so it would be Dwyer's Pub that would be overshadowed. So I do, again, have concerns on the height restrictions there, because on the front, you could make the argument it overshadows the first half of that Dwyer's, but not the second half as it goes up the hill. But we'll have that conversation at the actual first reading. Councilor Lombardi.
I'm just confused because it seems to me that we are trying to be the planning board here. And why isn't the planning board involved in this discussion?
We sent it to the, so.
Oh, but we could
Oh,
send
that
it
was a
back to
rhetorical
them.
question. All right. So the reason why, at least in my opinion, and I think we lose this opinion the longer this goes on, the conversation that was originally had resulted in a portion of this, not the changes that, after the master plan didn't happen. We then forgot about those for a variety of reasons, staff change, COVID, a lot of things. Development vested, the neighborhood didn't like that development. That development, then lowered the density, and so, but then, or density and intensity of that project to a CD4 requirement. They're going forth with that. The plans have vested, and we're looking at these proposed changes. Some of those proposed changes were to change some of these to L or CD, a lot of other things that were somewhat convoluted, and came with it very restrictive height zonings and density requirements. And that might have been, more amenable 4 years ago or 6 years ago, before we started getting as much feedback in terms of the amount of housing that's going to be required and the density that comes with that housing to actually build. I think that the easiest path forward at the moment is to codify what will happen there from the CD4. Be happy to have this conversation, and this plan does. Councilor Moreau's plan does do that. It codifies that one aspect of the building that's proposed change, which is not there now. It protects that property, both the residents as well as the property owner who has a plan that is requires variances at the moment that wouldn't require variances in the future, and aligns to what is there. So certainly defensible in my eyes in terms of changing that zoning. There's some other things in terms of overlay districts that we could change as well. I probably think we're going to end up having a new district that deals with these things citywide rather than in this neighborhood, but we could move the borders on that. And then there's a conversation around heights, which I think, again, might be, it might be harder to get that change as we're getting these other changes, because it seems like the juice might not be worth the squeeze for 5 feet and the challenge that we might receive from that. But I'm sure that it's also defensible in terms of the desire of the master plan to have step downs. But I am not convinced that, necessarily at this moment, without seeing the topographical, study of what that would be, where that's actually gonna net out. But we're doing this because the planning board was supposed to bring it up, didn't bring it up, punted to us, or punt it to the master plan, but it's still my belief that we have to make this right, right this wrong before we go into the master plan to be accountable, and so that we have a master plan that is responsive to neighbors and, takes on the big, hard things collectively as a city instead of one neighborhood their own. There are, I think, a specific number of things that Councilor Morrell points out in this plan that are easy fixes, and easy fixes might be the only fixes that we can get done before the master plan, because to apply it to one neighborhood versus the entire city is going to be harder, because collectively we won't agree that this is something we value as a city that could happen to our property as well as somebody else's property. But we'll save the speeches, or my further speeches, for...
I think you've already said it.
I said everything. Said everything. All right. But with this, we would need a motion to schedule first reading at the August 18th. City
I would
Council.
be happy to make that motion if I have support to do so. To make the motion to bring forward, or to have staff do a much better job at bringing forward the requested changes in zoning that have been put into my memo to the City Council at our for first reading at our August 18th. I said it right. Yeah, August 18th, 2025 City Council meeting.
Second.
As long as that means in general conformance of that, if there was an issue with the dotting of the lines and there's a way that allows some flexibility to preserve your intent.
And my intent, I think, is in the words of what I said in that. My diagram was just to try to highlight what we were getting rid of or to get rid of what we were trying to move and move it. But it was a late Tuesday night. I was doing that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Recuse.
Recused. All right. Next up, approvals of grants and donations. Acceptance of grant for the city's annual household hazardous waste collection event in the amount of $4,970. My favorite holiday.
Your Honor, I would move to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services to accept $4,970 from the Household Hazardous Waste Collection Grant Program and execute any contracts or documents which may be necessary for this grant agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
This would be for Saturday, September 6th.
Ooh, mark your calendars, guys. I'm
Right.
writing that down. Acceptance of grant for the city's North Mill Pond Greenway Living Shoreline Project in the amount of $419,306.
Your Honor, I move to authorize the city manager to accept $419,306 from the Aquatic Resources Mitigation Fund and execute all necessary documents to complete the project upon approval from the State of New Hampshire Governor and Executive Council.
Second.
Any discussion? Awesome grant. Thank you guys for going out and get it.
Peter Britz worked long and hard on that. Peter's here tonight, and Peter would remind us that this part of the park, which is specific to the living shoreline, does not require a match. So the state will pay for this piece in its entirety. Wow. We still have some funding set aside to do the part that connects to the rest of the greenway.
Awesome job, Peter. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next up, acceptance of donation from the Friends of Ruth Blay to the Public Art Review Committee to utilize for public art efforts in the amount of $3,729.04.
Your Honor, I move to accept the donation from the Friends of Ruth Blay to the Public Art Review Committee to utilize for public art efforts.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Cook?
Your Honor, I just want to thank the Friends of Ruth Blay and its president, Laura Brown, for this donation, but I also want to accept them for the wonderful piece of public art that everyone has been able to view for the last several years of Ruth Blay when you drive down Court Street. So thank you again for the work that you've done in the community, and thank you for supporting the Public Art Review Committee.
Indeed. Echo those words. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Acceptance of donation of 18 historical books donated to the Law Library by attorney Peter Lachlan.
Your Honor, I would move to accept the donation of 18 historical books from attorney Peter Lachlan, the Dean of Municipal Lawyers in the state of New Hampshire.
Second.
Now, do we have verification that these are indeed historical?
Oh,
Peter,
yes,
it's just
yes,
not.
we do.
Okay,
We
all right.
do. We have an index. They've been thoroughly vetted and they're on display in the law library.
Excellent. All right, I want to make
Can we
sure
all get to
Peter
see
wasn't
them?
just getting a little,
Can we all see them?
just having some spring cleaning there. All right, well, thank you, Peter. It's appreciated. Councilor Blaylock.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Peter Lachlan, and I trust that they're historical if he says they're.
That's right.
That's right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anything under miscellaneous? I'd wait a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, Portsmouth.